Constellation, Last Stand Media's conversational podcast, is brought to you by you. If you want to learn how to support our podcast network, head to patreon.com/laststandmedia.
Oh, hi. Welcome back to Constellation, Last Stand Media's conversational podcast. I'm your host, Dagan, Dagster Moriarty, Uncle Dagan, as Brad just referred to me. The dad, the call man, is away this week. Shades of Risky Business, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. What else, guys? Weekend at Bernie's? Hopefully not Weekend at Bernie's. So starting at the top, no Kyle today. Listen, he just said to you guys, a week or two ago, he'll be on the show 75%-ish of the time. He had other things to do today.
He's out there making content for you.
Yeah.
Right now.
He's doing other content for us.
Other content. Yeah. It just happens sometimes that way.
Unbelievable. So stop your belly aching. Consider this the 25%. So but listen, enough about that. I got two illustrious co-conspirators here today. We're going to have a lot of fun. Let me go around the room and introduce these guys. And I know you know. But listen, first up, Bradley, if you're nasty, Ellis, everybody joining us today again. We had this exact team not too long ago,
right?
4 weeks ago. We're doing it. So it's a repeat, and I love it. Brad, what's up, dude?
Hey, what's going on? Dude, Bradley, if you're nasty, is pretty cool. I don't think I've heard really anyone say that in my whole life. And it's pretty weird. I've heard every pun or joke under the sun about my name. Has anyone ever called you B-Rad? It's like, no one's ever called me B-Rad.
I gotta say, I kind of like
Bradley,
B-Rad.
if you're nasty, is pretty sweet. I like that, Dagan. That's good stuff.
You got it. You keep it. You use it for summon sign. Use it for punching up. We wouldn't even tell anybody yet. I said it first. Well, Janet Jackson said it first, then me. Now it goes to you. Right? That's it.
But I'm doing good. Feeling real nice. Very nice weather outside. Gonna get some lunch after this. Feeling good. And of course, I'm here with my boy Dustin with his one-piece shirt. Show that off, Dustin, real quick.
Let me see that.
This is the Gear 5
Dude, that's
shirt.
Sick.
I got this one in Japan, which when you buy shirts in Japan, you never know what size it's going to be.
Yep.
You never know.
Why?
Dude, sometimes you get Japanese large and it feels like a medium for us big boy Americans. But this one I got a large and it fits great.
So they're labeled, but they run different.
Yeah.
Okay.
I always go
usually
like a size
smaller.
Up. Yeah, go a size bigger.
Yeah.
Okay.
Usually.
That's good to know. I never knew that. We were just talking about how many times you've been over there now, Dust? 2 or 3 times?
2. But I've been thinking about 3.
By the way.
I've been thinking about it.
Once a year, baby.
I don't know, though. I don't know if I can get any more time off. I mean, Colin always says that I hold all the cards, so I can just tell him I'm off. I mean, what he's saying is true. It's like, sorry. So,
everybody gets a yearly vacation. Just give a little bit of notice, and then what can he say?
Right.
Yeah,
that's true.
Dustin, let me ask you this about Japan, because I know you love it. I know you've been over there a couple of times. Are you at the point now where maybe you're feeling guilty for going a third time rather than trying somewhere else? Or are you just doubling down on just continuing to go to Japan?
Holly and I have talked about this. So I've been to Europe before, but it was in like 2002. Went to Paris, which was cool. But the way I feel about it is like, man, I feel like I've only scratched the surface of the things that I would want to do in Japan. And I had the best time in my entire life there. That I understand the feeling of like, I really should go do something else if I'm spending all this money. And it's like, no, if I'm spending all this money, I want it to be something I want to do.
Yeah, I get that.
So there's other places, like we've been both times we were only in the 3 major cities of, well, not the only, but Tokyo, Osaka, Kyoto. So I'd like to go to like Hokkaido.
It's supposed to be beautiful.
Hiroshima, things like that.
Johto region.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okinawa, is that on your list?
Yes. Holly is recently watching an anime about Okinawa, and so she's like learning up. It's like really different than the rest of Japan.
Okay.
So
yeah, that's like where all the military bases are, right?
I think so. Yeah.
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 Mr. Miyagi also.
That's right. That's
He's,
right.
Yakuza 3.
Wax on, wax off.
Yeah, well, there's plenty to do. And like you're saying, there's going to Japan repeatedly. You could just do a different itinerary every time out, 20 times over, right? And never do the same trip twice. So, again, and vacations are expensive. So going somewhere new, even if you think you're gonna dig it, you run the risk of like, oh, this wasn't as good as Japan, right?
Right.
So yeah, that's tough.
Yeah,
That's
and it's been cool.
tough.
I have listeners that reached out to me that I met in Japan that have now become friends that I talk to pretty regularly, and so going to see them and hang out is one of the neat factors about it too.
That's really cool.
That is cool.
Super, super cool. What is the percentage? Just say walking around any of those cities, let's say Tokyo. What are the percentage of Americans or just /Westerners, percentage wise or ratio wise, walking around or living there? I guess it's hard to tell if people are visiting or living there, right? But are there a lot of non-Japanese?
It really depends on where you are.
Okay.
If you're walking around the temples in Kyoto, especially, is like tourist mega city where you'll walk around and be like, oh, it is all white people here mostly, or whatever. But other places, like we always like to go kind of like outside of the tourist areas too. And that's where you'll be like, oh, I am the only non-Japanese person here, as far as I could tell, because tourists don't come out here or anything. So it really just all depends. But if you're in parts of Kyoto or you're in downtown Shinjuku in Tokyo, but even then I'd say in Tokyo there's it's more so than in Kyoto, where Tokyo there's always Japanese people all around too. So
yeah. So interesting, dude. It's just every time I think of Tokyo, I think of Lost in Translation. Like that movie conjures the imagery. Even though I was in love with Japan and the idea of Japan way before that film, it's so weird. Like it all boils. Like I always think of Bill Murray, Sofia Coppola, right? Scarlett. Like I just think of that movie. Guys, this is what we got to do. When Colin stops being so grumpy about the live shows, go do a show in Japan.
Show in Japan, dude.
He foots the bill.
I know 3 people that will come. No, wait, 4. I know 4 people that could come.
That's the beginning of something special.
It's it got to be a lot more than 1,000. It needs to be like $10,000. Well, to pay to get us all over there, that would be tens of thousands.
Dude,
a lot of money.
Let's get the Tokyo Dome.
Tokyo Dome, dude.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. There's the sweet roller coaster right outside there. That's sick.
Forget about all of us. We're the 3 of us are having this conversation. Just us.
Oh,
we don't even need Colin.
That's true.
Yeah.
Right?
Dude.
I mean, we kind of need Colin, but we don't. Right? Maybe we'll bring Micah. She's more pleasant.
Colin will get to Tokyo and then be like, I'm just going to order food to my hotel like he did in New York.
Just McDonald's.
No, I think he got pizza of some kind. So, but
dude,
he would get McDonald's there.
Yeah,
he really would get McDonald's. He would definitely do the fast food. He would definitely he'd just hold up in the hotel. Nice hotel. You know what I mean? Nice accommodations. Right. But yeah, he's and then talking about I could see this on 4K on my screen. I don't need to go see it.
Yeah.
You know who thinks that's the craziest thing and would love to debate Colin on this? Helene. My wife, every time she hears that, she's like, what is he talking about? What is he even saying? And, they've known each other for 30 years, but Helene and Colin are very opposite. And that would be a fun debate. That would be fun. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
That would be good.
Now, boys.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, Sacred Symbols listeners, bear with me. I got to say the same thing as I did on the show the other day. Brad, I got it.
Dude,
dude,
look
at that.
Yes.
Wow. That is
It's pretty clean.
That really is gorgeous.
The only thing wrong with it, there is a little bit of wear, but you won't be able to see over Zencaster.
I can't even see that.
But I got to tell you guys, got this thing, opened it up, and it was hacked already, which is
nice.
Fine. I was going to hack it anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I was looking and I was like, should I look? Looked at the web browser.
Oh.
Gooner 3DS.
Yeah, it's Pornhub right there.
Dude, the history was like just lists of women's names, and I'm like, and then the big giveaway, Latina Deep Throat.
Oh no.
So, yeah, sacred symbols list. I already went over that on sacred, but I had to tell you guys.
That's awesome.
Dude, that's you know what though? First of all, that's awesome. I'm glad to see you doubling down on video games / retro video game.
Oh yeah.
Gene has been threatening a porn topic for this show for a long time. There's just something so
threatening.
I'm not coming down on porn one way or the other. All I'm saying is it shouldn't be looked at on a video game console like that. There's just something inherently not right about that. I don't like it.
I think
you're converging two worlds there.
It's unnecessary. Everyone's got a smartphone. You don't need that. You really don't. Maybe if you're like, I guess, a young kid, like a junior high kid, you don't have a smartphone yet or something. But most kids probably already have smartphones, I guess. At that age.
I get that. I definitely get.
In some ways, you would think the PSP would be more the Gooner device.
It was the Gooner device for sure.
But Nintendo fans, I was just thinking, it's something about it being Nintendo hardware to look at porn that's so funny. Like I'm imagining, like they go to like type in the URL and then like Mario shows up on the screen. It's like
they're doing it with the stylus. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
shit.
what are you doing? What are you doing? You know?
Yeah, it's not the video game
what
thing.
What are you doing?
What's I doing?
You're getting out your dick. Take it easy.
See, I think the phone thing is dangerous too. Because eventually, if you're pretty flamboyant about using your phone for that kind of stuff, eventually somebody's going to see, like you're going to leave it on in the supermarket.
Yeah.
Or, it's going to be, at the dinner table with your grandparents. Like, you got to be careful. You know what I mean? Like the old desktop PC days were safer in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Like Dagan, if you live that lifestyle,
yeah,
you're going to die by that lifestyle. Someone's going to catch you. Live by the sword, die by the sword. Someone's going to find out.
Gooners.
Yeah.
It's amazing there's not more embarrassing moments. I'm thinking of, this is like real hyperbolic, but the guy masturbating in the drive-through window, right?
Right.
And that that's like the most extreme case of this, but yeah, like it's amazing there's not more cases of somebody having, inadvertently playing their Pornhub playlist at a board meeting or something. If you're using your phone for everything, you know what I mean? You gotta be. To me, it's just it makes me nervous. I'm getting sweaty just thinking about it. It's dangerous.
There's like a plethora of videos that I've seen pop up on like Instagram Reels or whatever. That's like college professor plugs in his laptop.
Really?
And then exposes.
That's the perfect scenario. Exactly what I'm talking about.
Titties pop out, yeah.
So these things exist where like these public embarrassment videos.
Yeah.
Oh, dude. That's got to be a whole rabbit hole because I think about that a lot.
Dude, Dagan, I think that happens a lot, but I think we've gotten to such a point in society now where people just don't give a fuck if it happens.
Yeah.
They're like, oh yeah, there's my...
It's like, of course he's looking at that. Of course he's...
There's my hentai collection right there. It's just like, all right. All right, man.
I love the college professor.
They have no shame.
Oh, that's so bad. That's so embarrassing.
I'm sure many of our listeners have no shame. Many.
Someone's whacked off while listening to this show, probably. Yeah, like, it's 100%. In the background. They're not, well, I'm not saying they're whacking off to the show. Maybe.
No.
It's not possible. It's possible. Certainly possible. But it's like they got this on and then, it's playing in the background. They crank one out.
Yeah.
I'm saying they want the security, the comfort of Brad's voice.
That's right.
Bradley, if you're nasty in the background.
Bradley,
maybe they're playing near while listening to this and 2B comes on screen. Urges take over.
Oh yeah, certainly.
Worlds colliding.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just old. I think it's true. It's like it's to be expected in a lot of ways, I guess. Well, with everything at your fingertips, it's craziness.
It just gets worse.
You come from a time when people had shame.
Yeah,
which maybe was a good thing.
Yeah, there's no shame anymore.
There's no shame. Even I'm not like, I'm not an exception to the rule. Like I could tell that YouTube specifically, social media to some degree, but YouTube specifically is changing my viewing habits, my tolerance, like my patience with things. Like if a movie's not good in the first 30 seconds, I'll shut it off.
Whoa.
Where I used to give it like a 5 or 6 minute window to see, all right, let me see if I could maybe, you know what I mean? Like it's just like my attention span is shot.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm in my 50s. So I get really concerned for the you guys certainly, but like the younger kids, teens and 20s, like,
yeah, it's going to be rough.
It's crazy. Like, can they go to a movie theater and watch a movie anymore? Do they? I don't know.
Probably not.
Not really, right? I don't know. It's a brave new world, guys. This is a whole nother topic, actually. Well, listen, we got 3. Usually lately I've been saying 4 people, 3 topics. We got 3 people, 3 topics. Even Steven this week, symmetrical. Looking at the topics today, guys, if you don't mind, Bradley, if you're nasty, I want to start with your topic. I think it'll be a fun place to start. We'll squeeze Dustin's topic right in the middle, and we'll end with my topic.
Sure. We were actually going to do this weeks ago, but then I got sick, so Lockhart filled in for me. But I had to save it for especially this panel. Now that Dustin is back on here, it's like, okay, the stars have aligned once again, so we will get back to it. My topic is the Beatles, the band. A pop culture phenomenon that still persists even to this day.
Crazy.
So I grew up listening to the Beatles a lot. My parents are big fans of the Beatles, especially my dad. And I always really liked them. But it wasn't until I got older and you start to kind of like appreciate things about music more that I started to connect the dots more and be like, oh, this is actually really sick for certain reasons that I never thought of. And I just kind of went down a rabbit hole. And I think a lot of it is because of my dad, because he does the same thing with it. So it's been cool because we kind of like bond over it. But like, man, I've seen all the movies. I grew up watching Yellow Submarine and stuff like that when I was a kid, and Hard Day's Night and Help, all those movies like that. Never watched the cartoon show though. That looked kind of bad. So
interesting. I forgot about that series.
Yeah,
totally forgot.
Yeah. But never got into that. But of course, I'm a huge fan of all the albums, all the music, the bands themselves, the stories around the bands are so like, I don't know if there's a more documented band ever in music history.
Seriously.
It's like how many documentaries there's made about these guys, from amateurs to professionals, things going down, like the Get Back thing that Peter Jackson put out. That was 9 hours. I loved it.
Did you like it? I was going to ask. As a
flew
Beatles
by.
Fan, yeah.
Oh yeah, I loved it. I love getting that inside peek, like behind the curtain, kind of seeing that band go through their whole situation at that time. It was fascinating, and I love the group so much. And even like musicians today are still saying how good the Beatles are. It's like that was in the 60s, man. That was crazy. So long ago. In their prime, they were around for like 10 years, maybe a little over 10 years, I think, maybe 10. And it's how much of an impact they've had in that amount of time is unprecedented. Like, I'm thinking about the Beatlemania stuff at that time too. Just this weird cultural shift, like women literally screaming and fainting, seeing these guys play frequently. Like they had to stop touring because they couldn't hear themselves. That's one of the reasons they stopped touring.
So crazy.
Like, how insane is that? Who is that at that level? You could say like, oh yeah, Michael Jackson has kind of had stuff like that, but it's like, I don't think anyone's necessarily had the Beatlemania like they had. Anyone. But Dustin, I know you're a huge Beatle fan as well. First, talk to me. When did you get into the Beatles? Was it always a thing, or did you come later in?
I came real late.
Real late?
The Beatles. Yeah. It's funny because, which I'll get into how I got into them, but when I did get into them, my dad was like, oh, I used to play the Beatles, where you used to play the White Album. Bullshit. My dad never played me the Beatles growing up. He claims he did, but maybe he did at some point, but never made a big deal about it, whatever. I have no memory of it. But I got into the Beatles, as cringe as it is, from the Beatles rock band.
I love
Rock
that.
Band.
I
Got me in.
love that story. That's not cringe at all. That's so cool.
Yeah,
That's so good.
I was a huge Rock Band fan. Of course, I mean it was perfect timing. Rock Band came out for me when I was in 7th grade.
Oh,
and
yeah, golden time for you.
Of course, we loved Guitar Hero 2 and stuff like that. And so the band aspect was like, dude, this is sick. Playing drums, love it. So I remember my girlfriend at the time they announced Beatles Rock Band, and I was like, oh, I don't really care about them. I didn't hate them, but I was just like, oh, it's not for me, not something I want. My girlfriend at the time, her dad loved the Beatles, bought it. And so I was like, I'm at her house. Well, why don't, I'll play it. Why not? I like Rock Band. And I was like, oh, wow. I was like I guess the SpongeBob meme where like Squidward like takes a tiny bite and then he likes the Krabby Patty. Yeah. That's him resisting. I wasn't resisting, but it was like this, like, oh.
You were young, Dust. That was 2009, 2010, maybe 2009, I think.
I would have been in 9th or 10th grade.
Yeah, so you were a good age for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think they let me, like, I don't know, her dad would buy games and then not care about them. So I like borrowed it for a bit and I was like, man, this rules. And so that's when I got into the Beatles. And I think that around that time, that would have been when they started doing the latest remasters of the albums. And so it was kind of like a modern Beatles renaissance going on between the remasters, the game, things like that. And it was such a cool time in that I have this entire discography in front of me of the Beatles and being able to discover it all at once, and like really dive into each album and feel the progression and things like that. I was obsessed. Like I was listening to the Beatles every day on the bus, to and from school, things like that. And that's really where my obsession with this band began. A side note, funny story. When Holly and I got married, this is around when they were putting the remasters out on vinyl. And there was a regular vinyl box set, but there was also a mono box set. And this is where I get really fucking nerdy. So buckle the fuck up. For anyone who doesn't know, listening to the Beatles in mono, in my opinion, is way better than stereo. When they would record the albums, the Beatles would be present for mastering the mono versions. And then they would go off on tour or whatever. But some like EMI engineer would then master the stereo version. So there's literally mistakes in the stereo versions, like bad takes on the song If I Fell. There's a part where Paul McCartney's voice cracks because the engineer used the wrong take.
I love that.
And dude, because sick. It's so early stereo, and anyone who has listened in headphones knows this, you'll get like drums and bass in one ear and then guitar and vocals in the other ear. It's kind of weird. So anyway, making the story much longer than it needs to, I wanted the mono box set, but there was no fucking way we could afford it when, we were getting ready to get married, moving into our first apartment, things like that. So I devised a plan where I put them all individually on our wedding registry. And dude, the only one we didn't get was Beatles for Sale, because I just didn't. That's there. People say the Beatles don't have a weak point. They do. It's Beatles for Sale. So I have almost all of the albums, the new remasters on vinyl.
That's so smart.
Yeah, dude, it was great. I was like, I didn't know people would actually get these, but a lot of people would get us something and then like throw on a vinyl too.
Yeah, they want to make you happy.
Yeah,
it's good stuff. Good move,
dude. And those are expensive now because they haven't repressed those mono ones in a long time. Yeah. You're muted, Brad.
I bought some newer ones. Like I bought my dad the super dank deluxe edition of Revolver, and that one came with like the modern stereo remix, which is like 2022 or something like that, and mono. So I kind of had the best of both worlds with that. That's what I prefer if you can get those, but they are expensive.
Yeah, the monos are really, really nice. They sound amazing. They were pressed really, really well. They actually sound better in most cases than the originals. Or like earlier pressings, because the earlier pressings were kind of like cheap, trying to mass produce as many as possible for millions of record sales, stuff like that. So So yeah, where do I go from here? I've been obsessed with them, just like Brad. I've watched all the movies. I've seen Paul McCartney 3 times.
Ooh.
Oh, wow.
In concert.
Dude, that's huge.
I have twice, not 3.
Wow, that's awesome.
The first time I went, I think I was in either 11th or 12th grade. And it was the opening show at the new hockey indoor arena in Pittsburgh. It used to be Console Energy Center. Now I believe it's PPG Paints Arena.
I think you're right.
Okay.
It was the very first show there. And I was like, Dad, please. And this was after, I didn't think I knew about it when it got announced. So we got some tickets on like StubHub or something. Mm-hmm. They were literally the highest seat in the arena to like the furthest left. I think they were like $100 each, which now is like nothing for a ticket. But my dad took me. It was great. Shout out to him. And the other times, the other 2 times I've went with Holly. And the one time with my dad too in Baltimore, which was cool. So, but man, there's so many different things we could talk about, and I could literally talk for 6 hours about this. So I will shut up for a little bit so Dagan can talk.
I'm going to toss it back to you guys because I know you're super fans, and it's like one of those things. Like, who doesn't love the Beatles? I mean, we all know that contrarian that'll say,
it's pick me girls. It's the male version of pick me girls. I think we talked about this, Dag, at some point.
We might have.
I'm calling out Chris Raygun. Okay. Fucking bitch. Oh, I don't feel, are they really that great?
No. We did start to talk about this. Yeah, I feel like that's like almost impossible.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the enthusiasm. I feel like, you know, just kind of like furthering what Brad was saying, like the enthusiasm for the Beatles feels like it hasn't died down at all since the 60s. Like the very definition of a phenomenon. And of course, I grew up with them, but, you know, it crosses time, it crosses age, it defies era. It appeals to every generation. Like it's the definition of universal appeal to me, which is fascinating because it's like when you look at the discography, it's like every song is a bop. You know, there's a range of moods. You know, it's fun. Some are heartfelt, some are melancholy, some are emblematic, but they're all amazing. And it just seems like no matter how old you are, no matter what station in life you're at, you know what I mean? Like it just, everybody enjoys it. And I think even more so than the music, that's the fascinating thing for me. It's like, what is that magic? It's not even like another band. Like you could say another iconic band, like, you know, I know they're always compared to the Rolling Stones, amazing band, right? But even beyond music, there's nothing comparable to the Beatles as far as like scope and just something that's like probably the most important thing, arguably, in pop culture. You know, I always want to, when I think of the Beatles, beyond just enjoying their work, it's like I want to dig down and investigate, like, what is this?
Yeah.
You know, it's like 4 warlocks, like it's like sorcery, like it's beyond reason, you know, which is crazy. And, you know, my parents used to play it out loud. You know, I grew up I was a little kid in the 70s. And that was like, I would say Fleetwood Mac, the Beatles, and Zeppelin were like the 3 main things. But my parents had very eclectic musical taste. So there would be like Earth, Wind, and Fire and the Bee Gees, and everything played on the stereo out loud when they were fixing breakfast or cleaning around the house. And so, you know, by proxy, we would hear everything they were playing on the weekends. And the Beatles were up there, you know, in the rotation. And I remember as a kid thinking, you know, it was like the only thing that they put on in the car when I started to get a little older that I wasn't annoyed at. You know what I mean? It wasn't parent music. I loved that it was fun. I loved that it was catchy. I loved that it was whimsical. I think my parents played Sgt. Pepper's a lot. You know what I mean?
Hell
Which
yeah.
it just felt like, it almost feels, when you're a kid, I'm old now, but I remember feeling like, is this made for us? And then, you know, when Helene and I, both Beatles fans, had children, passing it down to them and listening to it in the car. And both of my kids had a bedtime song, a different bedtime Beatles song that I would sing to them before I laid them in the crib. And, you know, in the car, you know, you have like, I remember we had like the seemingly awful Kids Bop Beatles
Yes.
album, which is like
nice.
little kids sing. And it wasn't bad.
Oh.
It's like only the Beatles music could hold up to the Kids Bop treatment. You know what I mean? Because everything else, dude, was just like unbearable. But the Kids Bop thing, it's just so seeing my kids appreciate it. And you know what? That Peter Jackson documentary, it's been a while now. My kids were little when that came out. They were fucking riveted. Like, let's say they were 6 and 8 at the time. I never saw kids sit through a documentary. Like, I was shocked. Like, they were at an age where they would get antsy in a movie. And they sat and watched that documentary. I couldn't believe it. That's when you realize, like, there's something magical going on here. You know what I mean? These kids were born in the 2000s, right? One was born in 2007, one was born in 2010. Age-wise, like distance in years, like why do they get this? Why do they like this? Just like a kid in the 60s or a kid in the 70s and just that kid in the 80s and on. It's absolutely incredible. And one thing you guys made me think of, I'm so psyched Dustin brought this up because my favorite, I think, and this is the animator in me, but my favorite piece of Beatles media is that game, is that Harmonix EA Beatles Rockstar game, because I don't know if you remember this, guys. It's been a while since I've played. The cinematics in that game are fucking, not even beyond Beatles media, like some of my favorite animated media. Specifically the intro and the ending, but all the cinematics in that game, which were designed by an illustrator named Robert Valley, who's amazing, and animated by Passion Pictures in England, who does all the Gorillaz stuff. Now, Jamie Hewlett, I don't think was involved in Rockstar, but Passion Pictures did animate that stuff. And it's so, not only is it beautifully done and beautifully stylized, like the art direction is brilliant, but it's such a loving nod to like the Beatles and their whole evolution musically with the albums. Stuff is gorgeous. You could, and if you guys haven't played the games, you could just watch the cinematics, of course, on YouTube. Dude, I watch those like every few months just to get inspired about like what can be done with animation. Like I could watch a whole feature film done in that style about the Beatles. It's gorgeous. So that's my favorite. And then Yellow Submarine, which Brad brought up, the 1968 feature film, was really special to me growing up because it was so unlike every other high budget Disney or Disney-esque animated feature film. It was really stylized. It was psychedelic. It was Heinz Edelman and George Dunning, and it had a very English flavor to it. That was probably, I think the Yellow Submarine film was like the first really avant-garde animated thing I saw. Because, you know, growing up in the 80s, we were so buried in Disney and then the TV cartoons that we grew up adoring too. But that was like the first thing where I was like, wow, animation is, you know, it was the first artsy animated thing I saw, which was amazing, you know, to me. And really, I think the only thing that ever kind of stole the show from me more than the Yellow Submarine feature film was the Rock Band stuff that they did. You know, the art direction for that was just absolutely stunning. And it's just, you know, the Beatles are just like it's just a rabbit hole. Like Dustin was saying, where do you even start? Where do you even start and stop with the Beatles? It's incredible, dude. It's absolutely incredible. And seeing, you know, what's cool now? Like I'm jealous. I've never seen Paul McCartney live, but there's not too many people I could think of that would be cooler to share a room with for a little while. Like as close to like an immortal as you could possibly get. Like this man, what this man contributed to culture and pop culture as a part of the Beatles and, you know, in his solo efforts. You know, I love Paul McCartney solo stuff.
Yeah.
You know, like one of the most talented dudes that ever lived. But, you know, as I get older and I, you know, again, I'm not tuned into the Beatles 24/7. I'm a casual fan. But when I hear McCartney and he still gives interviews and he seems to get more and more transparent about, you know, the heydays and then what, you know, the breakup and, you know, the days after up until Lennon's, you know, untimely passing and all that kind of thing. What's also cool about him, though, is that the more he shares, the more I realize, and I hate to say it like this, but like a lot of it was kind of his fault. But it wasn't not even in a but in an inadvertent way, just for, I think, being so motivated and so talented.
Yeah.
You know, there was just no stopping that guy, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's always funny. The Beatles break up, like people, it's like, oh, Yoko broke up the Beatles. It's like, well, a little. Yeah. That's what was probably part of the,
Didn't help.
It didn't help. But there was like so many different factors going on at the time that, I mean, probably the major contributing factor of the Beatles breaking up was their manager, Brian Epstein, passing away, and they had no leader. He was like the guy that like kept them in line.
He was the glue.
And then when they were kind of managing themselves, it was like they're all kind of doing their own thing and drifting apart. So
I can only imagine how hard that must be. Now, let me ask you guys this, right? Because were they the first band? I always call it, with Colin, I always call it the Ninja Turtle dynamic, where you have the favorite, right? Were they the first musical act where everybody, you know, and I think of growing up in the 70s and 80s with Kiss, you know what I mean? Like everybody had a favorite. Gene is my favorite. Paul's my favorite, whatever. Were they the first band to have that? And who's your favorite? You know, as consummate Beatles fans, each one of you guys, who's your favorite Beatle?
I think they're one of the earliest examples of that, Dagan, that I could think of. Honestly, like, I mean, I wasn't around back then, but it's what I see in some of the earliest things. And they definitely, everyone leaned into that aspect of it a lot. Favorite Beatle, though? For me, it's got to be Paul. He's my favorite. I love just his songwriting and all of his stuff. And I loved how crazy he is. I did like that he tried to, like, for better or for worse, hold the band together and was like the workman or the workhorse of that stuff. But it's like, I love all of them. I love all their songs, but I don't know, something about Paul's songs, maybe just some of my favorite songs are from him particularly. So that might be why.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. What about you, Dust, for favorite?
Yeah, I got to agree with Brad. I'm a Paul McCartney man through and through. And Dagan, I'm glad you mentioned his solo stuff is awesome. Whether it's Wings, which is great, Band on the Run, fantastic album.
Dude.
I feel like the low key album from Paul McCartney that does not get enough love is an album called Ram. Dude, Ram, you listen to it, it's like, man, this was the beginning of like more indie sounding music in a lot of ways.
People say it's like the birth of indie rock.
The birth of indie rock? Yeah, dude, Ram rules. I feel like no one ever taught, like, no one knows. I didn't know any of the songs off it until someone I saw on YouTube was like, oh, you got to check out Ram. I was like, all right. And now, dude, Holly and I listen to it all the time. But in general, usually it's like, you know, Lennon or McCartney is the question. And I mean, there's a million John Lennon songs that I love. There's a lot more songs of his that I think I don't like. And also, there's this whole thing, and I'm sure you guys talked about this last week, Dagan, about like separating the art from the artist. But
with Kanye,
with Kanye. With John Lennon, there's sometimes I'm like, dude, it's not even that he was like, oh, he beat his wife. It's like, okay, I get that. I can get past that.
Who doesn't?
It's I just at some points found him kind of annoying. Like, he reminds me of like an annoying theater kid at points. Yeah. Which is like his, I don't know, his avant-garde quality, if you want to put it in a really annoying way, is what makes a lot of his songs really interesting. Think about like Strawberry Fields Forever and things like that, and the more psychedelic songs. Those are amazing. I mean, that song Strawberry Fields Forever is probably like in my top 3 Beatles songs.
So
period.
Good.
But yeah, Paul and his songs always spoke to me more. And yeah, dude, you're so right. Dude, I've thought about like, what if you met him? Like, what would you do? Like, what would you say? There's nothing you can say to this guy that he hasn't heard before. Yeah. And he's used to people like worshiping the feet, the you know, the ground that he walked on. It's like, I don't know, man.
As a kid, people were swooning. Like, can you imagine people like playing Shea Stadium in the 60s and those, you know, the girls swooning and stuff? Can you imagine seeing people have a reaction to you like that? But now this has happened to him for decades.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And still keeping like one foot on the ground has to be fucking nearly impossible. Because you become inhuman. I mean, you're revered as a god.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, a lot of rock stars are, but the rock gods revere Paul McCartney that way, like that level. The thing about, now I could be talking out of school. I don't know if you guys would agree with me because you definitely know more than me. But the thing that's about McCartney that was cool to me was that not only did he have the songwriting, and he obviously, you know, the guy just had a talent for creating tunes and that mass appeal and that melodic voice, dude. I mean, his voice was really special and I love it, you know, but he didn't mind the charting thing. He didn't mind that they were pop. He didn't mind that it was fun. He didn't mind that it was popular. Whereas it seemed like John Lennon, you know, was very much, which I relate to John Lennon on that front. There would probably be something in me that would say, like, have me questioning, am I selling out? You know what I mean? Am I not being the consummate artist? Am I not pursuing my vision? Like, there's a little Paul in me and there's a little John in me, but I get John. But that's what was cool about Paul, was like, he didn't mind just saying, this is what it is. You know what I mean? Then we could, you know, it had nothing to do with his talent. It had nothing to do with his vision. He kind of settled into what the Beatles were being made of. And I think that's really neat. And then, you know, the other thing is too, there's something about that appeal. I know we talk about in the 60s, it was so new, like the British invasion and this whole English flavor that they were bringing, which I think definitely add to their, you know, that exotic draw. But there's something about that fucking Liverpool accent that I wish I had it. You know what I mean? It's like, it just sounds cool when they're talking, when they're singing. Like, there's something magnetic about it. And I think that's part of the formula of, like, it just works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just works.
One of the things, and, you know, Dagan, you're mentioning about him kind of leaning into some of the pop aspects, is that I really appreciate when you look at their whole catalog that, like, you know, they were starting in, like, even some of Rubber Soul, but really in Revolver and Sgt. Pepper, they were like this trailblazer of, like, what music itself could even sound like, what pop music could sound like. But one of the things I love about his Paul McCartney specifically is that he never lost touch with, like, what made the Beatles great, or what the sound, or even just sounds of the past. I remember, I don't know, in one of the million Beatles documentaries I've seen or something, when Sgt. Pepper came out, there's a song on it called When I'm 64 that I'm sure you guys know, which is very traditional, old school sounding for them. And people, when they reviewed the album, were like, what is Paul doing with this song? Like, they come out with this revolutionary album, and then there's this song that sounds like a borderline, you know, show tune type thing. And it's like, Paul's like, no, this is the shit that I love.
Yeah.
And I want to pay tribute to it. And he continues to do that on, like, the White Album with Honey Pie, right? Not Wild Honey Pie, but the regular Honey Pie, and songs like that, where it's like he always paid tribute to what made him and added to it. So
yeah, it's unapologetic and authentic. And then if there's a sliver of the masses that has a problem with it, like, most people just love it.
Yeah.
And he's really tuned into what people are going to like, but I don't think that's why he creates the things he creates. I just think he has a knack for that. Like, very few musicians or artists have. You know what I mean? He was put on earth to do that, you know? And yeah, it's like, but you know what the thing is, they did, like, even for the short time, Brad mentioned that, like, that's part of the phenomenon, is like, these guys were not together long.
Yeah.
You know, they were broken up by what, 1970?
Yeah.
So they went, you know, starting with the 70s, they weren't even together anymore. Just to have that level of, like, you know, those legs, that longevity, to have that level of appreciation just continuing without creating new stuff. Now, of course, they had solo acts. My appreciation for George Harrison started in the 90s, I guess the early 90s, when they formed the Traveling Wilburys.
Yeah.
And then I was older and I was paying attention, like, oh, this guy's revered as like one of the really great guitarists and stuff. And then I was like, wow. Then, and then like there was also crazy anomalies happening, like Ringo Starr on Thomas the Tank Engine. Like,
Yeah.
But like, you know what I mean? Like, it's weird. Like, it has affected culture and pop culture in the way they spun off as individuals and stuff. Like, it was really interesting. You know what, though? Right before we went into recording today, right before I saw you guys on camera, I had a brain fart and I was like, is Paul the only one left alive? Like, I got nervous. I was like, is Ringo dead? I didn't remember. Like, I had a total brain fart over it. Apparently he's all right.
Just released a new album,
Yeah.
like a
so
country
cool.
album. It's probably not very good.
Yeah, I haven't heard it.
You haven't heard it yet.
No, his
solo stuff's not for me as much when I hear it.
no. I would
How
still
many
do
solo albums does he have?
A lot.
I
probably
didn't
a
even
lot.
know this.
Yeah, he has quite a few. I would like to see him in concert at some point, just because.
Yeah.
Does he
he's
tour still?
I would think so.
Dude,
Yeah.
isn't it crazy that he can't just go along and do stuff with McCartney? Like, why?
He just played with McCartney like around Christmas time in London.
cool.
They played a couple Beatles songs together on stage.
Oh, that's cool. See, we need more of this.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? This is the last vestiges. Half of these guys are gone, right? It's like, I know they have to move on. They can't be tied to like the history, and as artists, they gotta kind of evolve. But I don't know. There's just something just doesn't seem right. I'm not saying form a band. These guys are old now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's dude, it's just, yeah. McCartney is like one of those things where it's like, now that you guys are talking about it, it's definitely it would be really cool to see, because there's other people that I would consider, like the Stones are one, David Bowie was one, Prince was one. It was like just seeing those people, just sharing a room with those people for a few hours. I can't think of something more. Zeppelin, Robert Plant, Jimmy Page. Like, there's something about being in the same room with those people, just sharing that energy, that space, enjoying their music in the flesh. Something so real about that.
Yeah, definitely.
Super. Now, is this too hard? Favorite Beatles song? If you could just boil it down to one, is that too tough?
My go-to when people ask me this is the song "Getting Better" from Sgt. Pepper, Paul McCartney joined.
That's a good song. You don't hear that one picked a lot, though.
Yeah, I don't really know why that's the first one that comes to mind. It might not be
a good one.
But what about you, Brad?
Probably Here, There, and Everywhere.
Oh,
Off Revolver.
here's a little secret, Dustin lore about that song. When Holly and I got our wedding rings, we have Here, There, and Everywhere. You will never be able to see it.
Oh, that's cool.
Here, There, and Everywhere is engraved on the inside
of the band.
Yeah,
of our rings.
Oh, that's
Dude,
sweet.
I just think that's such like a masterfully written song. Everything about it is like perfect 10 out of 10. Every aspect. No flaws.
Dude, that's why, well, I'm sure this might have been your next question, Dag, but favorite Beatles album. And mine would have to be the song from the album that that Brad's mentioning, Revolver is my favorite Beatles album overall. Just because I know like everyone's go-to is Sgt. Pepper, and it's well-deserved. It probably is a better album in a lot of ways, but
different.
For me, Revolver is like, with Rubber Soul and Revolver being the two albums before Sgt. Pepper, it's like this gradient between old Beatles and new late stage Beatles, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like Revolver is that perfect mix where it's like kind of sound like they did starting out, but they're starting to get more experimental, a little more LSD, a little more weed going on. I love it.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah, Revolver's that's a tough one to argue with, for sure. Sgt. Pepper's is my pick because it's the most nostalgic for me. Like, that was my introduction to the Beatles. That's what my parents were rocking. And and I know it's like, it's the more psychedelic stuff. And then I guess as I got older, I went backwards and then probably discovered their earliest stuff last, which is a weird trajectory, which I definitely don't like as much as like the Sgt. Pepper's era. but there's just something about that, the whimsy of the Sgt. Pepper stuff, to say nothing of the musicality, which I think is brilliant and very appealing, but there's something about the whimsy of it that just aged well for me and just reminds me of being a kid.
Yeah.
You know, and then also like when you're a teenager, you realize like, yeah, that whimsical stuff that you thought was like the audio version of a children's book is also fucking drug fueled. You know what I mean? Like sort of like psychedelic, and what is it? What's the hidden meaning? So there's layers to it. So, you know, I grew up with the Beatles music, and then it took on the same songs and the same albums would take on different meanings as you aged too.
Yeah.
Which very little music does that. You know, it's very special in that way. It almost seems purpose built to be that way, but I don't think it was. I think it was just great. You know, really great.
I have a question for you, Dag, about Sgt. Pepper. Because this is something, maybe it's a hot take. The last song in the album, A Day in the Life. Many people attribute this as the best Beatles song ever. Hearing like, this is the ultimate Lennon-McCartney collaboration. I want to be clear in that I think it is like one of their best songs. But at the same time, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, okay, they had these two songs. They're like, what do we do with these? And Paul's like, oh, you know, and they kind of just stitch them together.
They're stitched together,
and they work so well. But when people are like, it's the ultimate collaboration, I'm like, no, it's not. Like these are two really interesting songs that are stitched together in a really cool way that makes it an amazing song. But it's not like, as far as like the best collaboration, like, I don't know.
Yeah. I never heard people say that. I could see, thinking of the song now though, and I do love that song. There's something extra emotional about it because it feels like a final, you know, it feels like a farewell. So there's like, it packs that emotional punch. And then I guess if you think about it, emotionally tied to Lennon's passing, and then sort of like their last-ish hurrah together and stuff like that. That's probably why people are sort of thinking about it that way. But when I think of like a song for me, like Penny Lane or All You Need Is Love, like, dude, like those fucking songs are like some of the greatest songs ever made, you know, and their whole discography is amazing. Like every song they've ever done is pretty much insanely good. But yeah, I don't hold it up to like my favorites. Probably not even in my top 10. But I get it. I mean, I get why people say it, you know. But yeah, it's I don't know, dude. It's amazing. It's also one of those things where, like any great artist, music or otherwise, like you think about what they could have accomplished together had they found a way to stay together longer, because every outing was different. It was still great. You know what I mean? And as they evolved, it was still amazing. And some people like certain eras better than others, but you know what I mean? Like, who knows? The sky was the limit with those guys.
Yeah.
And they just couldn't find a way to do it.
I'm kind of convinced that if they had stayed together, they would have started to make not as good music. And
awesome.
Well, now that we're in real hot take territory, a lot of people think that Abbey Road is the best Beatles album, and I think that is so wrong. It's great. It's great. The second half of the album is like, even people say the medley is like, well, this is creative genius, the Beatles, and how they I'm like, no, they couldn't get, they didn't even care to like finish these songs, and they just put them all together. And again, it's one of those things where it's like, even when it's like a fail in some ways, they made it amazing. But I'm like, dude, the medley's cool at the end of Abbey Road, but I'm not, it speaks to me that it's like they didn't really even want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
These are unfinished songs that they put together in this thing, and it was cool the way they did it. But I guess in order for this timeline to work, it's like if their manager was still alive and they were still all on the same page, then maybe. But I think about bands like the Beach Boys, where it's like some of their, you know, 70s through 70s on, really, in some ways.
That's a good
for
point.
The Beach Boys, that are like,
they outgrew their era. Yeah, they just outgrew. Yeah, you know what's funny about Abbey Road? Like that would be probably almost any other band's greatest album, but when you hold it up to the Beatles great albums, it's like, yeah, it's, you know, it's yeah, the bar is very high. It's unbelievable. And you know what's funny about it too? Like, I'm not a musician at all. Like, I don't have a musical bone in my body beyond appreciating music. Like, I can't play it. I can't read it. Like, it's just, I have no talent for that. But there's something weird when I hear musicians talk about, like, especially a guy like Ringo, like he's 25% of the equation. Like, the fact that he wasn't considered like even that great, but he was in the greatest rock band ever. It's like, what is, you know, it's so strange, right? It's, and, you know, maybe other people, you know, maybe the other guys could be considered mediocre compared to like the greats. You know, I don't know who that would be. Jimmy Page, Eddie Van Halen, whatever, whoever was like a, you know, a maestro at their respective instrument. To hear like even Ringo is like, oh yeah, he was a, you know, he kept time, and, you know, he had a very staccato style, and he wasn't like one of the great, you know, who's a great drummer, Neil Peart or something, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like, that's interesting too. It's like, it was just something that really spoke to people, you know, universally, globally, you know, internationally. It's like, wow, absolutely insane.
Dude, I can't stand when there's some people who be like, Ringo wasn't a good drummer. Beatles even said that Paul was a better drummer than Ringo. And I'm like,
wow.
I get it. Because when you think about great drummers, they're doing all kinds of crazy shit, you know, all these crazy fills and stuff.
Yeah.
I think what's underappreciated about Ringo is that he always did what was best to serve the song, not what would be the most crazy or impressive. And don't get me wrong, I love shit like that with drums when it's crazy and nuts, but like, he would come up with really interesting ways to play drums on songs that when you're listening to it, you're not thinking like, wow, this crazy drum part necessarily, but saying that he wasn't a creative drummer at all is like, what?
Yeah.
Doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, just because
that's what a poser would say about the Beatles.
Yeah. See, that's what, yeah. And it's all like, you know, for someone like me, I get frustrated because I wish I knew more to sort of dig in further on hearing that my whole life. You know, it's like, imagine he was a great drummer, but just not being technical. Like, yeah, like you're saying, he played along. What he did fit the music that they were creating, you know, so it's like, in a way, that is great. You know, he doesn't have to show out with a drum solo every song. Like, it's not that type of music, you know, or it's not a jazz drummer, or he's not doing these crazy fills, and he's not playing heavy metal. So it's not like super percussive. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. But when you hear that, it's like, wow, they still had this dynamic. Whatever they were doing, you know, seems like they could have done it for a long time. But that's another thing that's cool about the Beatles, and part of the allure is like, yeah, they didn't overstay their welcome. You know, everybody wanted more.
Yeah, everybody did.
That's part of the magic.
And we never got it. Except for like that brief reunion in the night. Like, they had the anthology stuff in the 90s with Free as a Bird and stuff like that, where they recorded those songs that John left. So we got some of those. Real Love, I think, was the other one. So we got those in like the 90s. Then, of course, we got Now and Then, last year or something like that?
I kind of hate that.
I got to hear that. I didn't hear that one.
Yeah, basically they took a John Lennon demo, and then I just saw a video where they were like defending themselves. Like, it was like George Martin's son talking about, it's like, we used AI, but not generative AI. We used AI to separate the tracks, so then we could use his voice and make it sound good and stuff like that. Yeah, they used like a John Lennon demo, and like they had a George Harrison guitar part recorded, and then Ringo and Paul did new tracks for it. And so it's like a new Beatles song, kind of. But they did like a big thing where like, this is the last Beatles song ever. It came out last year or something.
The last tape or the last song that Yoko gave Paul, I guess.
Yeah.
But they just weren't able to do much with it during the 90s. So yeah, that's it. The last of the John work that was unfinished, I guess.
That's it. When they release something like that, and you guys are dialed in and paying attention, does it feel like something that's welcome, or to you guys, does it feel more like a cash grab? It's like, oh, now it's
as
like,
a Beatles fan, everything's already been a cash grab to me, so it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, I honestly don't My reaction to hearing it is that I don't really like it. Like, I don't really like the song that much. I don't find it disrespectful or anything like that.
Okay. That's good.
I think it's a little odd. I think I would rather just hear like the demo that John left than try to make some kind of new production out of it. But with that being said, not to segue into another aspect of Beatles stuff, Dagan, if you haven't, the Cirque du Soleil Beatles Love album.
No, I don't know this.
Amazing.
Really?
They basically went, and it might have been George Martin, or it was either George Martin or his son. They went and they did all these neat Beatles remixes for like remixes and like putting weird like songs together in weird ways for the Cirque du Soleil show that they do in Vegas. And it's awesome. It's so cool.
Really?
So make sure to check that out. And any Beatles fans out there, there's like really cool new mixes and like songs combined in ways that are really cool. Highly recommend it.
Were the chaps, were Paul and Ringo involved in that at all? Did they oversee it or, kind of have their hands in there at all for any of this? That's interesting.
I would imagine they were. I'm not 100% sure.
It's so good, right?
Yeah. I mean, the Cirque du Soleil show is amazing. It's the only show that I went and saw the one time I was in Vegas was that show. It's really, really cool. I don't know if it's still there. I think they might be tearing down the building that it's in.
Oh.
So I don't know if they're relocating it or what, but it's really cool. So
that sounds cool. Yeah, that's nice. That's always a kind of a treat when something new could capture the magic, because who would have thought, right? If you heard they were working on that, you'd be like, oh, really? Like, who would have known that would be like something that Beatles fans were like, oh, it's real sick, like the way it came out. That's cool. That's also rare, I feel like.
Yeah.
Where, talk about cash grabs. The only other thing I could think of, and you guys take it in whatever direction you want, I've never seen the live action films. I don't know why.
Oh, really? Okay.
Never seen them. And I don't know if you remember them. I don't know how long it's been since you've watched those, but talk to me about those. Are they worth checking out?
Yeah, I would say they are. So the first one is A Hard Day's Night.
Right.
A Hard Day Night is interesting because they are like themselves in the movie. They are the Beatles in the movie. And a lot of it is them kind of traveling to get to this one place to play a show. And just a bunch of shenanigans going on during it. Like Paul's grandpa being there and just causing trouble and stuff like that.
It's legitimately really funny.
Yeah,
too.
You should watch it.
That one, I feel like that's the unfortunate part is I feel like that's the peak. Is the very beginning with Hard Day's Night.
I actually really like Help a lot.
Yeah.
Help is like a weird movie because it's just this cult trying to chop off Ringo's finger because he has a ring that they need for a sacrifice.
I heard about this.
And he can't take it off. And so they get into like just a bunch of weird scenarios. I like it because it's extremely different from the other one. That's one thing I really like to appreciate about it. But I think it's a fun movie. Kind of reminds me of like a James Bond adventure almost. That 60s James Bond feel.
They tried to give it a plot, right? This time and like see how the other guys do.
There's like an actual plot more so, than them just being the Beatles. But I like them both a lot. I think they're both great. And there's the Magical Mystery Tour movie or whatever, and it kind of sucks. So
it kind of sucks. It's weird though.
It's weird, yeah. It's really weird. If you want to
watch that one first,
it's like John eating a giant pasta or something like that. I forgot. There's
it's like a weird part with a stripper in it.
Yeah.
Really? I remember thinking like, I mean, now not a big deal, but I'm like, wow, this is like kind of racy, like for the time. But
yeah, because they had a pretty squeaky. I mean, outside the drugs, right, which were implied, they had a pretty squeaky clean image most of their existence as a band, right? I mean, they weren't,
image-wise,
there was nothing too controversial.
Well, not at the same time. I feel like their controversy was mainly because John would say something provocative. Yeah. Like he said, like, "Oh, the Beatles are bigger than Jesus."
Oh, stuff like sure,
yeah,
that's right.
That got him in trouble.
When did he say that? In the 60s sometime?
Yeah.
So interesting.
Oh, Dagan, you're gonna love this. Let me find this. Beatles baby cover. So an interesting thing of Beatles lore is that in the US, I think it was in the US, they released a like album, like a collection of songs
Okay.
And this was the cover. Oh, hold on. My copy paste didn't work. Here it is. This is the cover of it.
Oh, yeah.
It's called The Beatles Yesterday and Today.
What?
And this was deemed very offensive, disturbing, to the point where they pulled them off the shelves and stuck a sticker on the front of the album to cover it up. And then they put them back on shelves. So it's a extreme collector's item because people would go and take the stickers off, which was very difficult to do.
Yeah.
So if you have a pristine sticker cover that's untouched, because a lot of times people would like peel at them and then realize they couldn't get them off.
Oh shit.
But yeah, it's called the Butcher cover.
How have I never seen this? That's incredible. Yeah, you guys have to check this out. Whoever's listening, watching the show right now, you gotta absolutely check this out.
For the audio listeners, it's the Beatles sitting there with like, it almost looks like lab coats.
Yeah.
They're holding baby dolls and butchered meat.
Yeah. Baby dolls with headless baby dolls and butchered meat in like their butchered jackets. That's insane. What? Like, that's crazy that I've never seen that before.
Yeah. That's the thing is that there's so much like weird, interesting Beatles lore that when you become stupid about it, like Brad and I have, that you find out these ridiculous things like this weird Butcher cover. And I wish I had a Butcher cover vinyl. But,
that's insane.
I have a pretty good collection of like not original releases, but of that era. Like I have like the White Album that has the individual stamp on it with the photos inside. Things like that are really
That's
cool.
awesome, dude.
But
that album is crazy. Like that. I mean, them doing things like that, right? Having a piss, a little bit of hijinks. I know it's not today's standard as before, like the parental advisory labels on albums and stuff, but they had to know that was controversial. Like people were going to raise an eyebrow, right?
Yeah,
I assume so, but controversy is usually good for a band. Usually.
Yeah, no publicity is bad, right?
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
Later on, John Lennon put himself on his album cover completely naked,
right?
With Yoko, which is just, I don't need to see that.
Yeah, don't need
to see John's dong and Yoko's bush.
Yeah,
I don't need it. Sorry for the visual image there, but
it's not necessary.
Not necessary.
I just feel like the inner artist, like going avant-garde like that, is just a reaction to, it's like a cleansing of feeling like, I don't want to say sold out, but it's like, it's the opposite of going pop. It's like an artist's cleansing. It's like, now I got to do this in reaction to, you know what I mean? It's interesting. Like I relate to it in a certain way. Like I certainly wouldn't go to those lengths, but
right.
I understand how it comes out of, but that was what the thing that's so cool about Paul is that he seems so comfortable in that space, right?
Yeah.
Where maybe John, and I guess you could argue to some degree George, were a little more eccentric, I guess.
Yeah.
Dagan, have you seen there's a clip, and it's most famously passed around that there's like Bill Burr narrating it, where John Lennon, this was after the Beatles broke up, is on a TV show performing with Chuck Berry.
No.
And they're like, dude, you can tell John Lennon's having like the time of his life, but Yoko's there. She's like playing some hand drum or something. And then in the middle of the performance, she just goes and picks up a mic and starts like going, like making all these
like an Animal Crossing character. Yeah.
Yeah. Starts screaming into the mic. And dude, it's so good. When it happens, it's on a shot of Chuck Berry's face, and you can see his eyes go like it's so wide. And then eventually, God bless the sound man, whoever was running, they cut that mic because then you see Yoko standing there. She's still trying to do it, but nothing's coming out. It's like, dude,
I've definitely heard about this, but I've never seen it.
There's the image for you.
And with Bill Burr narrating, I mean, that sounds perfect.
Oh, dude, yeah, Chuck Berry's face.
Sounds
look
perfect.
at that picture, dude.
Oh, let me see.
Now, To be fair, Chuck Berry ended up being a bit of a freak himself.
Oh yeah, he was.
Like filming girls pee and shit like that.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he
was a deviant.
He like filmed girls peeing, and then like there's audio of it. I highly recommend looking it up later, dude, where he's like with a stripper and she's it's getting graphic. Stripper is like eating his asshole and he farts in her mouth. And he's like, "Oh, you like that, bitch?" Dude, it's wild. It's wild shit.
Oh.
What?
Yep.
What?
It's great.
That's incredible.
That's fucking
very
hilarious.
That is
Chuck
absolutely
Berry,
incredible.
dude.
Chuck Berry, dude.
I never knew
Dark
this
side.
about Chuck Berry. I thought he kind of predated all the controversial stuff because he
No,
was
man.
around from the 50s.
He was into some wild shit.
That is amazing.
See, Chuck Berry. Oh yeah, here it is. Chuck Berry farts on a prostitute. Yeah, okay. Well, we'll leave that out of the rest of that show.
Oh, dude, that's incredible. That is absolutely incredible. I had no idea this was going to take this kind of turn, but I kind of like it. I kind of
Dude,
like it.
there's a lot of wild turns he could take with the Beatles.
You guys reminded me a total aside that I learned about in college. Me and my friends, we had like classic literature classes in college and stuff, learning about like James Joyce, Ulysses, one of the greats. A bunch of his like letters between him and I don't know if his wife, some kind of lover, have come out since his time. He was into weird stuff too, dude. He specifically, I mean, like I thought of this because Chuck Berry. He like talks about like wanting to smell his wife's farts and stuff in these letters. So you have James Joyce, considered like one of the greatest modern writers of all time. He was like into some kinky stuff.
If you're that creative, you got to be a freak probably in some ways.
Yeah, it comes down to, right? It all comes down to being like strange, eccentric. I guess you could say eccentric if you want to be kind. Yeah, it all comes down to that, man. Oh, that's funny, dude. Yeah, that kind of like ruins the allure, but it's kind of nice to know they were human too. Like, it's like,
Oh yeah.
Have you ever tried to read Ulysses or is it a portrait of the artist as a young man? I think is his other big one. They make no sense. I don't know. I haven't tried to read them since I was college. I tried to read them like, what the fuck is going on? These make no sense to me.
Did you have that same thing with like a lot of people do with Shakespeare and stuff, where you're like with the Old English and that sort of thing?
Sure.
Yeah, it never threw me.
I to this day I don't understand Shakespeare. I've seen a bunch of Shakespeare plays. My wife has been in many of them, and I usually sit there and I'm picking up what's happening based on purely the acting and not the dialogue. Because I'm like, I don't know what they're fucking talking about. I don't know what's going on here. What are they saying? Doesn't make any sense to me. It's probably, I mean, it's on me. Definitely a mental, block.
It's not an intelligence thing. It's definitely like I have like Shakespeare. I never had a problem with that sort of thing, like following along with language. I always say this and it sounds terrible, but my grandma, when she got old, had Jamaican caretakers, and they were like, two of them specifically were like really off the boat Jamaican, the best people, like sweetest ladies, but very, very thick Jamaican accents. And I had absolutely no problem understanding what they were saying. Like, I don't know if it was just like the cadence or, the gestures and the mannerisms and, because just having a face-to-face conversation, I was never lost, but everybody else, like my aunts, I would serve as a translator. You know what I mean? And listen, I'm the biggest idiot in the world, so I know this doesn't boil down to intelligence. But there's just something about language, like I just get it. Now, if you stood here and talked to me in Japanese or even French, which I took years of, like that's different.
Right.
But if it's some form of English, I'm fine. You know? So James Joyce probably wouldn't throw me. But that's really the only thing I could brag about any semblance of intelligence. If even intelligence, that is. Yeah, it doesn't bother me. I don't know what it is about that. I always prided myself on that. I was like, I'll translate what they're saying. You know what I mean? Like, I think people too, like I know Scottish people. I knew two Scottish dudes, on separate occasions, Scottish guys that would definitely play that up. You know what I mean? Like they definitely played up the accent, and not only did the girls love it, but you know what I mean? Like they would have a blast with people not understanding what they're talking about, but I always got it. You know, I was always like front and center, like I knew exactly what they were saying. But yeah, that's it. That's about it. That's about it. When it comes to everything else, I'm an idiot. So, what do you think, Brad? I mean, this is a big topic.
Yeah, it's a big topic. I think, you know, we covered a lot of bases, though. Feel pretty satisfied about that. Talked about the albums, the movies, the Beatles themselves, their impact on music and all that stuff in pop culture. Feel pretty good about it, Dagan. Pretty satisfied.
Not too bad. Now, what do you, this is kind of an aside, but I'm just thinking, especially from my heyday growing up, Paul McCartney sort of collaborating with Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of that stuff?
I think it's okay. It's fine.
Yeah.
What's the one song? It's the doggone girl is mine.
Yes.
Is that one, dude?
The girl's mine. Yeah. I forgot about that one.
Wasn't there bad blood though between Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson?
Michael Jackson bought all the rights to the Beatles stuff.
Yeah, they collaborated and then he bought all the rights.
Buy your music. Yeah.
Does MJ's estate still own those?
I don't know. They might have sold
I
them.
wonder about that. I remember that falling out though. That was pretty catastrophic. It was like, wow, I think it was news to everybody when we found out Michael Jackson owned that stuff in the first place. Although it doesn't surprise people from a monetary standpoint, but just why, you know? That was interesting. And it should, you know, like those collaborations, like I think that song, that was a bop. That Say, was that the name of the song that they did together?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was like, wow, like McCartney could do, is there anything, like he hasn't done a hip hop song. That would be interesting.
Nope.
Right?
He kind of has.
He has? Wait, talk
this connects to your episode last week. He collaborated with Kanye on 3 songs, I think, because it's All Day was one of the songs that Paul McCartney's credited on. It might be called 4 or 5 Seconds, and Only One are 3 Kanye songs that have Paul McCartney credits on them.
What?
Which one of them, All Day is the only one that's really a hip hop song. I don't know what he did on that song because you don't hear him singing it at all, but the song Only One, you can definitely hear Paul on it. And is it called 4 or 5 Seconds? Let's look here.
That is so crazy. I mean, Kanye, God, man, that guy really did reach. He ascended to Paul McCartney heights. That's insane.
Dude, Paul McCartney's done like orchestra music too, as well.
Dude, Destiny.
Yeah, he did Destiny as well. Yeah.
Do you know that, Dave?
Right.
Yeah, he did like the ending song for Destiny 1 with Marty O'Donnell.
Oh, I'm glad you guys brought that up. People would be mad if you didn't. Your audiences would definitely be mad if you didn't bring that up.
I think I talked about it with Chris a while ago, but yes. I remember it was very strange.
That was a weird one. Definitely a little weird. But
is he like a hologram in it? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Marty O'Donnell now, isn't he like, I know he was always conservative, but he's gone like, he's like running for some Republican seat.
Oh, really?
Some state now? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't know about that. Are there any other big Beatles fans in the Last Stand family? I know Colin would have enjoyed this topic, being a big music guy, but I don't know if there's any other huge.
I don't really, not that I'm aware of.
Right. Yeah, I wasn't sure.
Just the old heads like us and Dustin
and me.
That was fun. That was really fun. It makes me think too, like these are great, like Kanye, the Beatles, these are great topics to break out. You know, when there's so much, the only thing that's on the downside is there's so much to say. Like you could do a part 2 and a part 3 easily when it comes to the Beatles, you know?
Yeah.
You could break
depending
it out
how deep you wanted to go in each thing. Yeah.
Well, that was fun. That was definitely fun. Now we're going to take things in another direction. Dustin doesn't mind with his topic. We'll sandwich this one in the middle. I like this one, Dust.
Sorry, I was muted. I was trying to, clear the cough without you guys having to hear it, but
nice,
a
very
little
professional.
overzealous.
I do that as well.
So my topic is about staying motivated.
Mm-hmm.
We could take this a lot of different ways, but starting for me, I'll be honest with you guys and with our audience. I guess I touched on this in Sacred Symbols a few weeks ago. I can't tell if I feel like I'm going through something right now. Like on and off, especially in the last month or two, I feel like I lose all motivation for everything. And that's the part that feels most weird, is that sure, all the time it's like, oh, I don't feel like doing this work for my job. I don't feel like doing this housework. But lately, and thankfully not all the time, there's sometimes where I don't feel motivated to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Even the things that I enjoy. Like there's times a few weeks ago, I was like sitting there on the couch. I'm like, man, I don't feel like playing a video game. I don't feel like watching a show. Don't feel like reading. All the things I love normally to enjoy. I just don't have any motivation. I don't feel necessarily sad. But I mean, I guess I was like reading into it. I'm like, oh, I guess this is a symptom of depression. Mm-hmm. So I was like, am I depressed? And so on Sacred, I was talking about how I was like, I think I might be, if this is like a vitamin D deficiency, like when it's the winter and I don't leave the house very much.
Sure.
So like I've been taking some vitamin D supplements, and that has helped me as well. And I mean, of course, like, it goes without saying, something really horrible happened to me last year that is affecting my whole family still. So that's part of it as well.
Sure.
And just figuring out like what your life even is still.
Totally understandable, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Be patient with yourself.
Yeah. So I guess for what I wanted to ask you guys is that whether it's like, staying motivated with work, or for me, a lot of times it's even, I guess the most frustrating thing is that I often don't feel motivated to do the things I really want to do. Like, for example, I've been trying to keep up with my, like I'm learning Japanese on Duolingo, and I'm not like, oh, I want to be fluent, but it's like, okay, this is like a cool goal realistically I can work towards. And sometimes I'm like, man, I'm really motivated to do this. And then other times it's like, I don't care at all about this. Or I don't know, like different things that you want to better yourself. Another good example is like, it's hard for me. I've never felt motivated to like work out or anything like that. I've never been the type of person that's like, man, I feel great after a workout. It's like, nah. And there are times when I've stuck with it despite hating it, and I feel motivated because I understand the rewards, but like eventually that motivation just disappears. And I mean, honestly, it's probably just a lack of discipline on my part. That's something I've thought about a lot recently. It's like, man, now that I'm like, I mean, obviously I've been an adult for over a decade now, but I still feel like it's like, man, now that I have no one's telling me what to do, I don't have the discipline to even do the things that I want to do. So where do I get that discipline? Where do I get that motivation? So Brad, I mean, either one of you, Brad, Dag, Brad, let's hear from you first. Yeah. I mean, both of you guys are older, wiser than me. So, and Brad, I know you are able to consistently go to the gym and stay motivated in other ways. Where are you with this? Do you ever feel unmotivated, potentially deficient in vitamin D, having depression? Where are you at?
Yeah, man. I feel unmotivated all the time. Even going to the gym and stuff all the time. I'm like, I don't want to go, man. I always like think of some excuse in my head. I'm like, I don't feel that good. Do something like that, and that really just kind of gets you down. But it's like, to me, for how I do better is if I'm just like harsh on myself and just be like, just stop being such a fucking pussy and go. And it's like, all right, fine, you're right, all right, just go. And I do it usually, but it's a constant battle. It's something you're going to be dealing with constantly. And I think knowing that does help, though, to get over it, in the sense of like, I know if I go, I will feel better some way. Some, like, even if it's physically or mentally, doing this will make me feel better. Going out, it's like easy for us to get stuck in the house too, I think, nowadays, especially. We work from home and everything like that, and just kind of the nature a lot of stuff is.
Yeah.
And I think just getting out of the house a couple times a day or so can just really help me with that, get out of like that whole funk, whatever you want to call it, that funk. And but vitamins definitely can be a thing for sure. Like vitamin D, like luckily it's usually pretty sunny where I live, and I do go outside a lot, so I do get that. But yeah, man, it's a struggle to do stuff. Like I've talked to you about this, Dustin. It's like that YouTube channel I want to start, and like getting that Death Stranding video, spoilers, going out.
Oh, yeah.
But it's just like I have to edit it, and it's like feels so daunting to me and stuff like that. But it's kind of like, just kind of gotta fucking do it.
Yeah.
I know that's what I have to do, but it is just the fact of me actually taking the time to do it, which is the hard part.
Yeah. I know that for me, Brad, you're mentioning creating excuses for yourself, which is something I often do. So like one way I counteracted that when I'm trying to actively do something like work out or do this project or whatever is like create as few barriers between you and that thing so that there is no excuse, is super helpful. The other thing too, like Brad with the, editing and getting into creative projects outside of work, it's like, I always found that I always work up that the concept of doing it is so much worse than it actually is. And then you start doing it and you're like, oh, this actually isn't that bad. It's like, if you can just start doing something.
Yeah.
Like I've often found that's like, okay, if I want to, like, let's say in theory, if I was editing a video, it's like, okay, if I just load everything into Premiere and do that first step, then it'll be easy next time to just hop in. But what I end up finding is that once you start getting into doing, like, you'll load in Premiere and you're like, oh, maybe I'll just check it out on the timeline. Well, maybe I can do this here.
Yeah.
And then it's like, it becomes, as Jim Ryan would say, a virtuous cycle of you continue, you find that motivation.
Yeah, that's true.
But Dag, something that I was just thinking of to bring up with you is that I can't remember, this might have been Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, but maybe not. Maybe just like a overall virtue is that, like, you think about how you take care of the people that rely on you. Maybe this example, it's like a dog, right? You want to make sure they're relying on you, so you must take care of them. And if something happens, it's, in the case of a dog specifically, it's like, it's going to be your fault if you don't take care of them and they're going to have poor health or whatever. It's like, why don't we apply that logic to ourselves often enough? You don't take care, like, you, sometimes, I know for me specific, it's like, I'll take better care of the dog than I will myself, like with reliability and consistency. Why don't we do that? And then you think about it, you're like, oh man, I really should take the time and care to take care of myself as well as I do a dog, or in your case, Dag, like kids.
Yeah.
I feel like that's like a great motivator. It's like, you have to be better, because if you aren't the best Dagan, that there's like a trickle down effect. So it's
Very
like the
point.
ultimate motivator.
Excellent point. Yeah, self-care is important. And it's not just eating the right foods or staying away from fast food or whatever. There's
Right.
a lot to it. I mean, Dustin, I love this topic. First of all, because I think topics like this, the audience will really appreciate, because, we all go through this. I really dig your honesty and your transparency. And, I think for you, Dust, specifically, I think it sounds like, early 30s, right? But early 30s is a tough pocket. Like, I remember that. Like, it's a great time of your life in a lot of ways, but it's also a very strange era. It's a very strange period of time to go through, because you do still, in a lot, first of all, you're not that old. You're still
Right.
in a lot of ways very young, and you feel like you're still attached to your youth, but in modern parlance, you're in your 30s, so you're an adult. So it's a very strange, don't dismiss that. Like, I look back on my 30s, especially my early 30s, very fondly, but it is a tough age in a lot of ways, because I think it's very transitional in a lot of ways, and the transitions are slow. Staying motivated is a great thing, because we all have to deal with this in some way. And I think when you sent the topic, I was like, yeah, you know what? For me, this really speaks to me, but it all starts for me personally with being really introspective, if you can. like everything in life, like really knowing yourself and really thinking, even if you don't dig down into the reasons why, just your traits and your characteristics and your personality and the way you handle your responsibilities and things. I know for me, I've definitely learned something about myself, and you were just touching on it already, Dust, that I'm a bad starter. I'm just a terrible starter with things. I'm a very bad procrastinator. I'm a procrastinator to the nth degree.
Me too.
And I realize that a lot of that is, like you were just saying, like loading your video and your audio files into Premiere. Like a lot of that has become my process, for good or for bad. So I realize now that the first 10 minutes, maybe 5 or 10 minutes, are going to be torture, like just getting the momentum to get started. And by the time I have that 10-minute, let's say, window, and I look back in the rearview mirror, I'm like, oh, that wasn't so bad. And then you get ahead of steam and you're off to the races. The funny thing is, I go through it. I've been going through this for years, and you forget, like, you're going to have that perspective in the rearview mirror. You just got to get 8 to 10 minutes in, right? So I know that about myself. So it's just, I have to give myself that big push over the cliff, because I know in a few minutes I'm going to feel fine, So that's knowing myself. And that could be with anything. That could be with, having to go food shopping, or having to put gas in my wife's car, or work, podcasting, animation, whatever. So that could really apply to anything. And the other thing, it sounds cliched, but balance is important. And what I mean by balance is, I'm a little bit of a perfectionist and a workaholic. And I realized, at some point along the way, that I can't go all in on one thing. Like whether I'm really into it, or I have a deadline, or a combination of both, I find it's helpful to go for a walk. Just clear your head, take your eyes off the screen or whatever task you have in front of you that seems daunting. Do some chores, do something nice for somebody in my family. If I know my son needs laundry, I'll throw a load of darks in. Or I'll prepare a snack for Helene, like something simple. Like I'll bring her cheese and crackers, we'll cut up apple or something. It just gives me a break. It gives me like a fresh perspective, and it makes me feel good that I'm doing something else rather than just being this one trick pony. And I find that doing that builds inspiration too. Like when I get back to my task, I feel re-energized, right? And it's almost like, I think of it like a video game life bar. Like I'm going to get rejuvenated. And the work will be better, and my attitude will be better, and I'll enjoy the work more, even if it's something I initially didn't want to do. And that's part of that self-care, like building that into your process, even when deadlines are looming, even when you feel busy, even when somebody's expecting something from you, like trying to budget in that time, because it improves the overall quality of everything. It just makes you feel better. You'll even sleep better, I find. Like, you'll just feel more balanced. You'll feel more centered. And then the other thing is, like, it's a kind of a bold thing, but I'm definitely embracing this attitude of when I feel burnt out. And what you're saying really speaks to me. And it's like, I feel like I don't want to do anything, even the things I usually find myself loving, that feels like burnout to me. And then that's when I try to welcome in, like, let me try something new. If there's something you've been thinking about, delving into, like in a hobbyist capacity or something, like I think about like overlanding. Like I really like to go on like rugged-ish hikes. It's a hobby that I felt like can't really skateboard like I used to, outside of just like cruising around the skate park. Because I just, what I mean? I'm old. So it's like, what can I do that's physically active, that could be cool? I love being out in nature. Let me try to go on these hikes that are a little more like, a little more off the beaten path hikes. A trail hike is great too, but like something where I'm like in the woods, and it feels like an adventure, and something I've been thinking about, maybe it'll help. And maybe you'll get to that hike, or the gym, or going to the driving range, or playing tennis, or pickleball, whatever it is, and you won't like it. But maybe it'll be just what the doctor ordered, right? It'll be like, it'll be a shot in the arm, and it'll give you something to look forward to. And something new, and then you bring that energy back into the other things, the other things that are already the mainstays, your job, the hobbies you care about, that sort of thing. And the only other thing I could say that's a really important one that Colin and I actually talk about a lot, I know he's of this mind, is developing a little reward system for yourself. Like when I get through with this, it could be something small, like I'm going to have a snack, or I'm going to have some R&R time with a movie and my sweetie, or, I'm going to have a day off tomorrow. I'm going to reward myself with a day off tomorrow. I'm going to buy myself a little something from Amazon, whatever it is, right? Like give yourself that light at the end of the tunnel as a payoff of getting through, a tough weekend's worth of work, or a day where you're going to be working 8 to 8, or, even something small. Like I got to do all the laundry because I know the coming week's going to be hectic. That's it. Build in a little reward system for yourself. Like we shouldn't, you don't have to like mire yourself in misery or even like apathy. You know what I mean? Like try to improve it. And the other thing is, like you were saying too, like just be patient with yourself. Like sometimes these things take time, and sometimes we don't even know what's bothering us. I find that a lot, for me, like, I don't know, like everybody's different, but my rhythms, like something troubling me or anxiety will manifest itself in my sleep with bad dreams. Like if I'm having bad dreams and waking up in sweats, I know there's a deeper rooted anxiety going on. And then I could try to assess what that's all about, So it's just really being introspective and knowing yourself. I think being introspective is scary sometimes, but for me, it can never hurt. And it often helps, So those are the things I do. And, again, also like in the spirit of being patient with yourself, I think a lot of this stuff is easier said than done. That's the hard part. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like I know I'm talking about being a bad starter and I laugh at myself, and it's just not going to go away. It's just how I'm built, So I know I've developed those sort of systems to deal with that, because I just know inherently, like I'm just the worst procrastinator in the world. And, what does that boil down to? I'm laying on the psychiatrist's couch. It's like fear of failure, perfectionism, trying to make everyone like you, like whatever it is, like even the psychological reasons aren't even important. It's just like knowing yourself and how can I cope,
Yeah.
And there's always room to evolve. I'm 51 years old. I'm still learning about this stuff. So.
Yeah. The introspection thing is, for me, it's kind of an interesting one where it's like, I feel like I'm either too introspective because then that's where it's like you're, as you were saying, Dagan, like the self-doubt or being overly critical of yourself. But, sometimes you can be introspection overall. I think especially is, really good, because sometimes you need that little bit of like, oh shit, I think I might suck, where you realize you're like, oh, I'm glad it's painful, but it's a good thing that I'm realizing this so I can make a change. The thing sometimes too is just, it's like sometimes the introspection is like, oh, I wasn't even thinking about that. Like I wasn't being introspective about the right thing. And so there's not even really any advice or guide on how to even do that. But
no, that's the tough part. And the imposter syndrome is real. You got to know, like, I know everybody knows this, but you got to really know it. Like everybody goes through that. If you're not experiencing imposter syndrome, that to me, that's a red flag. Like, I think everybody gets that. Paul McCartney gets that about his thing. Like the best artists that I admire get that about their thing. I've heard the best animators say, like, they feel like they're fooling everybody and they've been doing it for years and they're considered like the greatest at that thing, and athletes go through, but I know what you're saying too, Dust, because you don't want to get so introspective that you feel like you're paralyzing yourself. Mm-hmm. Right. But you want to know enough to be able to surmount whatever obstacles, and, a lot of obstacles we put in our own way. I know for me, all, like 80% of my obstacles are like self-imposed, so it's like, it is that, maybe that's part of being, everybody here is a creative person. And I think that's part of the creative gene. I think it's just built in to a lot of us, maybe not all of us, but a lot of us, we're saddled with that. So we got to find ways to deal with it and it could change. It could change. You could get better. Like my procrastination was so bad. I would say probably the first 10 years of my career that it just became known that I wasn't going to hit a deadline. You know what I mean? It was like when Dagan delivers his scenes, they will look amazing and won't need notes, but he's going to be 2 days late. And everybody built that into the pipeline. That's a problem. You know what I mean? It wasn't until I was really around your age, Dustin, where I was like, this is not gonna, I'm going to stop getting work.
Yeah.
People aren't going to call me for the next production because, maybe they don't have the luxury of not hitting the timeline on the next one. You know what I mean? So there's always room for that, for getting better. But, sometimes it just takes time. I think you got to have that. I don't know what you guys think, but it also helps to have that person to talk to. Like,
yeah.
My dad is the one for me because he's detached enough to, obviously he's biased. He loves me. He's invested, but he doesn't have to, like, I wouldn't necessarily, even though she's my best friend, saddle Helene with this stuff all the time because we're just too close. Like it's just like she knows me too well. It's like I need that fresh perspective. So I'll call my dad. He's 3 hours away. I don't see him that much. And there's just a lot of wisdom there. He's also been through it. Helene's younger than me. So I sometimes I just need that age. I need that wisdom. I need to talk to that person who maybe gave me a lot of these problems in the first place. You know what I mean? I had to come from somewhere. So having that person to talk to really helps too.
Yeah, definitely. My dad has been great for that. And you're right. It's obviously with, your wife, your significant other, there's someone you can tell anything. And at the same time, the way I feel is like with Holly and I both, you take on some of their burden in a way that you should as someone who's married. And that's good. But there's sometimes where I'm like, not for this. You know what I mean? It's like, I know that because of how much this is affecting me, I don't want to put this all on you also. So having that kind of somewhat external person from the immediacy can be really helpful.
Super important.
Absolutely. And Holly seems really great. Like she seems like she would be great with that kind of stuff. And Helene is too, but I wouldn't say, I've been with Helene for a long time. We haven't been married for almost 30 years, but we've been together for almost 30. And I don't think our relationship, there's always the beginnings where even the first few years where you're trying not to hurt people's feelings and you're trying to give them advice without, giving them the tough love, but the tough love is important. You know what I mean? So Helene is someone I could talk to because she'll say, you're acting like a fucking idiot. You know what I mean? And sometimes you need to hear that, you know what I mean? Like, or that I'm wrong. You know what I mean? Or, I'm dealing with somebody and she's just like, she's giving it to me 100%. You know what I mean? Whether it's something I want to hear or not. And sometimes you need that. You know what I mean? Where if it's somebody who's going to blow smoke up your ass, that's not always the best thing. You know what I mean? So it's somebody who's just going to be real with you and not in a mean-spirited way, but just in a like, let's cut to the chase type of thing.
Yeah.
Knowing who, getting that advice, that unbiased advice, good advice. And, when Helene gives me that sort of advice, it's out of love. She wants me to get past those things and, whatever I'm dealing with and surmount those obstacles. But it's so crazy, man, because I think everybody can relate to this no matter what their, what walk of life they come from and what they do for a living. It's so interesting, to have those tools and those coping methods. But it's funny because I know a lot of people that aren't introspective, like they just can't go down that path of like self-discovery, that kind of journey of like trying to improve their life. And I just don't know how you do that. You know what I mean? It must be hard not being able to change your situation, because it really is. It all boils down to quality of life. It's like, you don't want to be miserable. You want to try to fix the things. And then the next thing, we're humans, so we're fallible. So then the next thing's going to happen. Then you got to have the capacity to deal with that. Like you're saying, Dust, like life is busy. You know, and then when you're dealing with kids and you try to be, when you're dealing with not even just kids, just having a family, being part of a family, you're dealing with other people. So it gets even more complicated. But yeah, man, I think it's normal. And it's funny. I think a lot of people would dismiss this, but I do think something happens this time of year. We're still kind of in winter. We're still weeks away from spring. I think there is definitely something with this weather, especially, living where we do in the Northeast, and, the way it looks and the way it feels and the cold, and, it's just, it feels like a little more oppressive.
Yeah.
Than it's going to feel a month or two from now.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's the thing that I have to remind myself that, while I think this is, all things considered, worse than previous years, this does happen to me around this time of year, where it's like late winter, not doing anything.
I get it.
But yeah, it's it's interesting. I don't. Something you said made me think of, and the audience is getting annoyed me hearing about this book, but The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Please read it. It's such a good book. I think there's a part in it about how, like, your life is always going to have suffering in it and things you don't like. And the idea of, like, happiness is overrated. And you really need to, like, reorient yourself, that try to get your life to a point where you're happy with, you enjoy the things you don't, or the things you don't like are the things you choose. The work that you have, even though you're always gonna have problems with your work or problems with your life, but it's figuring out what things you're willing to put up with.
Yeah. I think that book's that we touched on that book a little bit. You definitely brought that book to my attention, and I think that sounds like something I would definitely benefit from reading. It sounds like so that good. Whole philosophy. My high school art teacher told me once that, like, creating good art, and this always stuck with me, was like the perfect balance, like finding the perfect balance between caring way too much and not giving a shit.
Mm-hmm.
And if you could just find that middle ground between those two things, I think that could be applied to life too. Like, you have to be invested. You have to be empathetic. You have to care about what you do and the people around you and the people you care about. But also, if you could just have a fuck it attitude and not bring that level of anxiety in,
mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It almost seems like a magic trick to me, especially because I'm very type A when it comes to worrying. But you could just find that, that's sort of striking ground where it's just like, yeah, it sounds like a dream to me. And if reading something could help me get there, like even incrementally, man, I'm down.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in.
That kind of reminds me of written by a very controversial figure now, and someone who I think has kind of gone off the deep end in some ways, but Jordan Peterson talks about the idea of the balancing your life between order and chaos. And that if your life is too orderly, it's not fulfilling, but if it's too chaotic also, then you're headed down a bad path as well.
That's very well said.
Yeah.
I read some of his book before he got, not to start a whole conversation about Jordan Peterson, but I think that he definitely has his fame has affected him in a lot of different ways that I don't think is desirable. But his advice in some of the book, 12 Rules for Life, is, really solid stuff. Some stuff that I've actually been thinking about recently. That's like the idea of, like, you have to set yourself up to, it's almost like a fake it till you make it. I think this is big things like clean your room and make your bed. Like, you have to start with these basic things. You're not going to be able to do the things you want to do if your life around you is chaotic. I'm like, yeah. I'm looking at my desk right now. I'm like, I got to clean this desk. This is part of the problem. Absolutely.
Fake it till you make it is well said. I think that could be definitely part of it. Like, just kind of taking a page out of the book of that energy. You know what I mean? Like, that's definitely like fake it till you make it is actually a great topic, because that's something that's worked for me before.
Yeah. Dude, that's why I'm here right now. I mean,
that's what you're doing essentially.
I sort of faked it till you make, not really. I think that comes back to the imposter syndrome thing, Dave, that you talked about. It's like,
yeah,
I wasn't faking that I was a competent editor or anything like that. It feels like you're faking it when you present yourself that way, though. But it's like, I don't know.
No, I know exactly what you mean.
It's not a deceit, I guess, for people, because it's like if I had faked having any kind of technical skills, the Colin would have kicked me the curb a long time ago. But at the same time, it's like present yourself the way that you want to be in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
Very well said. Yeah, it's giving yourself the benefit of the doubt and giving you and sort of knowing that you could rise to the occasion.
Right.
And you're going to do it no matter what. Even though I've never done it before, I've never done it to this level before. It's normal. Like it's very healthy. It's brave, but I think it's very healthy. I would, you know, I have 2 teenagers. I would encourage them to take a page out of that book for sure. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like, well, the worst you could do is fail. I mean, fear of failure. That's a whole nother side topic, right? That's a big one for me. You know, it's one that's just not going to go away. So, you know, how do I get the better of it? You know what I mean? How do I rise above that to do the things I want to do? You know? And, yeah, man, I deal with that all the time. I think, you know what the other thing is? I know I'm old. I know I talk about social media a lot and I'm kind of down on it. And you listen, I see the addicted, like I could be just as addicted to social media if I go there as the next guy. Like I'm not immune to this, but I also wonder how much of social media is bringing people down. Like
probably quite
there's just something inherently wrong with it, especially if you don't balance. It's a great tool, the entertainment value and all that stuff. I get it. You know what I mean? But like handling it, I don't want to say with kids' gloves, but like implementing some sort of balance with it and not going overboard with it. You know, I think it's really important. There's something about it that makes me anxious when I'm on it too long, and I fall down the rabbit holes and, you know, start doom scrolling and all that kind of shit, you know, and doom scrolling. Sometimes I'm just enjoying a feed because there's a bunch of funny shit. You know what I mean? I'm labeling it doom scrolling, but I'm enjoying it like any other person. But there's something when you come out of it, you feel like turned around sometimes, right? It's too much entertainment, too fast, too much at your fingertips. There's just something that, I don't know. Maybe we don't have the capacity to deal with, or we don't have the capacity to deal with yet. I don't know.
Yeah,
we don't.
There's definitely, could be a whole topic. In fact, I think AI or algorithms has been a topic before, but I watched a really interesting video from, I think the YouTubers Technology Connections, maybe, about this idea of like, it's gotten to the point where for entertainment, we are letting a computer to decide what we watch almost all the time, you know, whether it's a TikTok feed that just feeds you content, with you know, a Spotify radio station, or even to some extent the YouTube algorithm as well, is like you are choosing. There's some choice in that, and you can have a situation where you're choosing, you know, your channels you're subscribed to, but so often we're letting an AI, an algorithm, dictate our own entertainment. It's like, what, when you think about it, it's like we're losing all sense of our own agency if we're at the point we're letting the computer decide how to entertain us. And I'm super guilty of this as well. Like I will watch Instagram Reels or let YouTube pick out videos for me, and it's like,
yeah, dude.
Though the weird part is when I look at it, I'm like, I probably am starting to be kind of abnormal, where I see people on Twitter that are purely for you feed people. And I'm like, dude, I don't want to say only. I always scroll my own like follows only, the people I follow. And then if I'm like at the end and I'm bored, then I'll go and look at the algorithm feed. But a lot of people don't. Just like,
no, they don't.
Whatever it decides. And then there's the whole political aspect. It's like, what if these algorithms have biases one way or the other? I've seen it both ways on the internet. So
it's hard not to think that, dude. I mean, yeah, people trading convenience for autonomy, and you're making a good point. I mean, you go on Netflix, it's like movies for you. It's like, what? Like, I mean, everything is curated, you know, and again, in the name of convenience, swell. Like, I'm not going to have to, maybe I won't have to spend 20 minutes with my wife searching for a movie like we had to do a few years ago, but you know, some autonomy. Where is discovery? Where is, you know what I mean? It's like, The only other thing I would say that Brad brought up a great point earlier, and I think this applies especially to the three of us, but to a lot of people, not everybody. But working from home, I think, has also been, I've been thinking about this a lot. So it's funny Brad brought this up because I love it. Like, I love working from home. I've been working from home a long time, even before COVID. I stopped commuting to New York. That was really hectic and indeed hellish. I did it for years of my life. But, and, you know, for the convenience and for being home and spending more time with my family, it's brilliant. You know what I mean? I wouldn't trade it for the world. But there's something lately that I've been missing about having the balance of being at work and being at home. And, you know, whether that's being on a team and collaborating creatively or just having lunch with friends on a, 5-day-a-week basis, or there's something about being home that I think it's important for us to be cognizant of having that balance. Like, I should be calling my friends, my out of town friends, to meet for drinks more, even if we're meeting at like a central location, or, you know what I mean? Because again, that's part of that self-care. And I think we inadvertently deprive ourselves of that just by being home so much. We don't mean to, right? But now we're not seeing friends as much. We're not just out in public as much, having exchanges with strangers, like all the normal things, that it's kind of the Wild West. A lot of us have only been doing it for a handful of years. We're home all the time, and there's great, it's wonderful in a lot of ways, but also maybe a little problematic. You know what I mean? So again, in ushering in that a little bit more balance, maybe we just got to be a little more mindful of that. I know for me, I definitely deprive myself of those things. And again, I don't mean to, but I've also been missing it. You know what I mean? Where I'm like, I don't know. Like, and part of it for me is my kids are getting older. One of them's going off to college. I guess it's like, I don't need to be home all the time. You know what I mean? So even if I'm home all the time, I'm not going to see them anyway. They'll be out of the house and my son will be right behind her. So there's definitely that, but I think there's something interesting about that. And I wonder if people that stayed the course and, have a job or employment or go to school where they have to be, 4 or 5 days a week, they have that rhythm of commuting and going to the workplace or going to school. I wonder if they're suffering the same way. You know what I mean? Or if they maintaining that balance helps.
Yeah. Hard to say.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. Again, I don't think if you asked me right now and I had to come down one way or the other, I don't think I would trade working from home because it's so great. It saves money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it used to cost me $80 a day to commute to New York. Like, it was insane when you got down the train and lunch and subway and gas money to get to the train station. Like, it was fucking ridiculous. And work wasn't compensating me for that. You know what I mean? So just in that, I've been very fortunate that I could work from home. And, I guess we all are, but I don't know. Maybe it's just, we're still, again, it's still the Wild West. So maybe we're still just getting used to it.
Yeah.
I'm envious of Brad's former job in some ways where you guys got to go and be together and record. But I know it was also annoying.
It was a far drive from me. So it's
How often did you do it, Brad?
like twice a week.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Would you prefer that? I think about this a lot,
No.
Dustin. It's funny that you bring this up. Would you prefer that? Would you prefer if we could all record in person every week for for Sacred, for Summon, for Constellation? Would you prefer that?
It would have to be the perfect hyper unrealistic situation where it's like we all live in the same town and it all happens to be our hometown. So no one's upset about not living where they want to live.
Okay.
You get to drive 5 minutes, 10 minutes, be able to be in a ideal, location where you can record, and then go home and it's easy to get home. Things like it would have to be so ideal.
This is your dream.
It's not possible for us in the way that we're set up. And that's fine. Colin talks about this all the time. That's like, our shows would be better.
Oh yeah.
If we were all together. But there's just such a cost of forcing everyone to be together. Physically, like living, like if we all moved to Richmond,
right.
No offense to Richmond. I don't want to live there.
No
desire to live there. And that would be such a it really makes it sound like I hate Richmond. I don't. I don't want to live there. Like living there somewhere that isn't where my home is now, and that place specifically, it's like I just don't. It would lower the quality of my life so much.
Yeah.
That it's like, well, it's not worth it. And thankfully, with technology now, we're able to do this and still put out a quality product, and we all have a connection to one another that is able to transcend the severance of the internet.
That's true. So, I see what you did there.
Yeah, transcend severance.
We need to get Colin to move to San Diego. He loves San Diego.
He does.
I could get there once a week easily if you wanted to do in person.
See that? Brad has spoken. I mean, it is the dream, right? I mean, it is like there's something. I think Dustin's right. I think we do good content, but there is something super irresistible about or tempting about saying, "Oh, we could elevate the content by being together." Not only that, it would be super fun.
Yeah.
But all but obviously because of the logistics, all but impossible. Especially because we're a big group. I mean, it might be possible for like the core dudes, like I would say you two and Chris and Colin, to get together in the same spot. I mean, even 4 people, I think of the logistics of like Dustin's saying, picking a common place, whether that's somebody's hometown or somebody, somewhere completely untethered, like let's say you all went to Austin to be near Joe and that type of thing. But yeah, it is. So we by the nature, at least of podcasting, we're definitely going to be working from home.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's interesting. That must have been a different. Now, how long would you record, Brad? You went to this spot twice a week.
Yeah, I would try to be there as long as I could to get everything done that I
on
could
those
there
2 days.
At those, so I wouldn't have to come back more.
That makes sense. Yeah. So you've had that journey. That's interesting because you have a lot of perspective on that, and Colin's done it.
Yeah,
but none of us have done it. Yeah, it's interesting.
Driving, well, working in person is awesome, but yeah, driving sucks.
How long was it? An hour each way?
Like 45 to an hour. 45. Yeah.
My last job, initially, it was just me and the owner doing video production, but initially it was a like 8 to 10 minute drive, and then it turned into a 20 to 25 minute drive, which I know for a lot of people commuting,
that's a big difference.
Trying to bitch, it was very annoying when it changed to, that. I was like, So,
no, that's a big difference. See, commuting's all a matter of perspective. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it really is. I thought I had the worst commute, and when I was commuting a couple of days a week, between New York City and suburban Philadelphia, and then there was a dude that commuted from Baltimore. And I was like, all right, I guess he wins. You know what I mean? There's always somebody else, every day from Baltimore. I was like, are you insane? And he paid for the Amtrak, which was like super expensive, So it's all a matter of perspective. You don't know, I still think my worst commute was when I lived on Long Island and worked in Manhattan and had a 50-minute train ride. For some reason, that felt like the worst commute. So it's all, you know what I mean? Who knows? Who knows, my friends? But Dust, we're going to check in with you again. But I trust that when the weather warms up, we need spring here. I mean, I know how Eastern Pennsylvania is. It's just like, it's been brutal this winter.
Yeah. Dude, the worst thing is that 2 or 3 days ago, I went with Holly to Home Depot she's working on our spare bedroom, doing some construction stuff.
Oh, cool.
So I went with her, but I was like, wow, I don't need a jacket out here. It's amazing. And I told her, I was like, dude, Western PA weather, it could be snowing tomorrow. Sure enough, wake up yesterday, snow. Though I think it's warmer like today. That. It's 45 out. So
okay, so somewhere in the middle.
A little better.
Okay. That's not too bad.
Better.
Pennsylvania's been like Philly's been the same thing. It's like there's no rhyme or reason. It could be 60 degrees, next day is 20. It's just like, why? What is happening? You can't even get a bearing on anything. You don't even know how to feel. Until the day. There's no consistency.
Yeah.
What do you think, Dusty? Are you satisfied?
Oh, I'm very satisfied.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Always.
All right, my friends.
Wait, hold on. I got one tip.
Oh, please.
Particularly
Brad,
from the workout perspective.
Okay.
Right. Or you can just say anything. Get a friend to do it with you so you can motivate each other. If you have someone that counts on you and you count on them, much more effective. I used to do that a lot with my brother and stuff, and it does help a lot, especially when you're starting out. Keep each other motivated.
You motivate each other. Brian, if you don't mind me asking, what do you do? My kids are very interested in both joining the gym, and my wife's like, you really need to go and lift and like tone and stuff, which I agree with. I don't get out of the house enough. But what do you do? What's your regiment at the gym? And how often do you go?
I try to go, ideally I'd go 5 days a week, but I don't. I usually go 3 to 4 usually.
It's respectable.
But it depends on the day. Like one day it's like, hey, this is chest day, so I'm going to do everything with my chest, work at everything until I can't pretty much anymore. Next day is arms day, so I'll do bicep stuff, then I'll do triceps and all that kind of stuff. Then then I'll do shoulders. Day focused on shoulders, then one focused on back, then one on legs. Then you repeat.
I like it. I like it. How often, how long are you at the gym for, a session?
Maybe a little over an hour.
Okay, that's not bad.
No.
Right?
I try not to like spend 2 hours in the gym because you can, but it's like I'd rather just work harder usually in that amount of time to get out of there.
I like that.
Because like I don't want to, I'm not like fucking pumped up to work out or anything like that. I'm not like, yes, let's fucking go. And I'm not like thrilled to be in there. I'm like, all right, let's just get my shit done. I don't want to rush myself, but I got to find that nice happy medium.
Yeah, that's well said. Yeah, I'm going to be the same way. I'm going out of obligation, try to enjoy it as much as I can, but yeah, definitely not psyched.
Yeah. Like if I was doing cardio all the time, I would kill myself. I hate cardio. It's so boring to me.
Yeah.
Like some people like just sitting there for like 20 minutes and that's fine, but I can't do that.
A lot of people like that. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people like that. Get yourself some nice headphones, whatever you're going to do.
Yes.
Some
the entertainment's important.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I got to take a page out of your book. I definitely have to do that. And I mean, you know what? It always, even though, you're going to drag me there kicking and screaming, I'm going to feel better for it.
You will.
You know what I mean? You just feel better.
Yeah. Get your headphones. You can listen to us talking about Chuck Berry farting in someone's mouth. Yep. Or you're at the gym lifting weights. It'll be great.
There's going to be a dark weekend rabbit hole where I'm going to start it's like you guys really opened my eyes to something I don't know if I'm ready for. I'll be honest with you. I'll be very honest with you. All right, my friends. I will bring up the rear with my topic. This is one I wanted to do for a while, and I saw you guys were going to be on this week, and I said, this would be 2 good candidates for this topic, but how do I put this out? Like, how do I elaborate on this? And what I asked was, I want you to give me one thing that for you defines or embodies cool. What is the coolest of cool? And then, like I said to you guys in the email, it could be a person, whether it's a person you know or knew, or a celebrity, or a band, or a certain style of dress, a certain style of music, a philosophy, a super dope sports car. What really is the meaning of cool for you? And it could be, this could be a very shallow answer or something much deeper. Mm-hmm. And I tell you why I think of this. The word cool fascinates me because I don't know when it was brought into existence. I want to say it was the 50s. Don't quote me on that. But it's one of the only terms. It's one of the only words that once it got branded, it never went out of style. Yeah. Right? Like cool, from the first minute somebody said it, it's always this acceptable word for expressing, admiration or, approval of something, right? Yeah. Or that you really dig something. It's fascinating in that respect. And then it's like, yeah, but I think it's a real getting to know you thing if you know what somebody thinks is cool or what somebody deems cool. And it's funny because it's the first time maybe the first time I've ever thought about a topic where I really didn't have an answer. I just had a question. I know a lot of things that are cool, but what really, like, if I had to boil it down to one thing for myself for the Dakester, what would that answer be? And I think a lot of this, again, is just like my reaction to social media lately where there's just so much ego. Now, I don't know, inflated ego. I don't know if it's false ego or if it's actual authentic ego, but like, it's just the nature of social media, for right or for wrong. Social media is the insert name here show. It's the Dagan show. It's the Brad show. It's the Dustin show. It's the Barbara show. Looking at you, Barbara. It's the Tom show. You know what I mean? It's like, here's my car. Here's my tan. Here's my bikini. Here's my Rolex. Here's my artwork. Here's a funny joke, right? Here's my podcast. Here we are, right? It's like, there's just so much ego. And I think for me, for my own thing, and this is not being, I'm just as guilty as the next person. Listen, honestly, but there just seems like so much ego and so much brand and all that kind of thing, so much selling, that it's like, where is the modesty? Where is the humility? Right? It's like, and I thought like, oh, Dagan, you know what you think is cool? You think when somebody's really popular, or even more so, when somebody's really talented or good at something, right? A sport, art, writing, anything, podcasting, name something, right? When somebody's genuinely good and sought after and talented and amazing and awe-inspiring, and they could still be humble, you think that's super cool. Like, you think that's like genuinely humble, not false modesty. Like, when somebody's great and modest, I just think it's like the coolest thing. Keanu. And I don't even know that I can name an example.
Keanu.
Oh, you know what? He's a great example, because he's genuinely humble dude.
Yeah.
And grateful. You know what I mean? Like, and that's not a prerequisite. Who am I to make the rules? I'm just saying, I just think that's dope. You know what I mean? Like, somebody can be great. They know they're great. They know they're universally beloved. And they're just like, I don't want to say you have to be aw shucks, but there's something really cool about that.
Yeah. I agree. 100%.
And Keanu's a great, great example of that, where he's great. He's so much fun. He always gives his all, right? You always enjoy his performances. He makes great choices. He seems like really selfless, but he's got all that talent and the body of work, right? Like, he's been doing it for a minute. And then, on the other end, he seems very approachable. He seems very, he seems genuinely like a humble dude. Mm-hmm. So he's a great example, Brad. But I'm going to turn it over to you. I'll turn it over to you first, Brad. When it comes to cool, and there's no wrong answers here.
Right.
But if you had to boil it down to one thing, it's tricky. What for Brad, the Bradster, if you're nasty, what's cool?
Being easygoing, I think, is very cool.
Love that.
Just someone that doesn't get too wound up about stuff. Someone you can count on. Maybe someone you don't even agree with on a lot of stuff, but you guys can just talk and be cool about it. That is really cool to me. Just someone that's mellow all the time, when we live in such an era where people are always freaking out about stuff or whatever. Just someone that's a little more down to earth and willing to listen and be patient. That's very cool to me. I think being humble, like you said, Dagan, is a very big thing as well. Very big.
It's easy to get an inflated ego. I think especially when you're good at something, especially when you have a big audience and everyone loves what you do and everyone wants your autograph, and like the Keanu Reeves of the world, or athletes, or all the famous people, all the who's.
Yeah.
I think it's probably hard. Like, again, we were saying earlier, I think it's probably really hard to keep both feet on the ground. But when you could do that, and I see that, what you're saying kind of goes hand in hand with what I'm saying too, Brad, but I see that in you. Like, I don't know if it's a Southern California thing. I know you guys are known, natively for a very chill vibe, but you do have that quiet charisma. I don't know you that well, but you're very likable. You don't seem like you're easily rattled. It doesn't seem like, it seems like you're not, I never hear you say a bad thing about people. What I mean? It's just a very, there's a lot of, don't know if quality is the right word, but yeah, it is kind of a quality, those are quality characteristics in a human being.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's just like around who I grew up with and everything.
I was going to ask you that. Who modeled that for you? Because you had to get that from somewhere.
I don't know. Me and my brother both kind of always have been like that, I would say. We're both very much the same, I would say, in a lot of personality wise. We sound the same. We kind of like conduct ourselves the same like that. Maybe that. I don't know. Because like friends I knew growing up, all walks of life, all different types of behaviors and stuff like that. But I feel like a lot of big things is just like, is this person chill? Are they just cool? Are they mellow? Are they dramatic about stuff? It's like, if you're not dramatic, usually it's a good thing about a lot of things.
Yeah, that's actually, I mean, that's, again, those are characteristics that I feel like are rare. I mean, we live a lot online in the social media spaces amongst a lot of the loudest people. You know what I mean? Whether they're pleasant people or divisive people or whatever. But yeah, to have that like quiet, it's a dignity, I think.
Sure.
So you have to learn that from somewhere. And, people could also learn that from being around and subject to the opposite thing and wanting to be,
Yeah, there's definitely people I grew up around and stuff like that. It's like, I don't want to be like you kind of thing. So maybe a lot of that.
That's a dope answer. That's a really, really cool answer. And you know what and this speaks to my age. When you hear the word cool, what's the first thing that pops in your mind? Brad, I'll start with you.
Robots.
That's an awesome answer. Dustin, what about you? What's the first thing you think of? I want to let you run with this topic too. But what's the first thing you think of? I think of the Fonz. I grew up in the 70s. Like, I think of the Fonz with his thumbs out and his leather jacket.
So iconic.
It's just, that's the icon of cool.
Yeah.
Still, for me, because I'm old.
I'm trying to tell, because the first thing I think of, but I'm thinking about talking about this person who I think is like the currently active coolest person in the world. And that would be Kendrick Lamar. He's the coolest. He is, to me, and Holly and I talk about this too, though. We think he is the coolest, most, he's like one of those guys to me. And if you don't like his music, I can understand like thinking he might be cringe or something like that. But he's cool in a way too that from a racial divide, I will never be able to be as cool as like even a shred of how cool he is. There's a part that we always talk about in the King Kunta video where he's in, it's like a gas station or a convenience store and he like does this dance in it. And I'm like, if I did this or if anyone I knew do this, they look like a fucking idiot.
I feel the same way.
But I see him do it. I'm like, man, he looks so cool. How does he do it? And I guess that for me, kind of branching into this more is just that like there's like the visual cool and then the acting cool, which are like two kind of different things. And visually cool, like Kendrick Lamar, I think he's cool for other reasons too, but like the way that he's like calm and not calm. There's some of the stuff in his lyrics too. Like he has this new album out called GNX. And there's some parts on it where he's known for being like this super poet. He won the Pulitzer Prize for his lyrics, like amazing lyricist. But then on this new album, he has a line where he literally goes, bing, bum, boom, bing, bam. I'm on that kind of shit you wouldn't understand. And I'm like, hell yeah. Like, it's just stupid, but it's meant to be stupid. And that's what makes it cool. I think about too, like famous, like characters in TV and stuff. When I think of a cool character who this is a visually and on the surface cool, but actually sucks.
Okay.
Don Draper.
Oh,
Don Draper with the SIG
good
and
answer,
the old fashioned dude. Cool. So fucking, in fact, just a SIG in SIGs on certain cool character. Like if you're already a SIG is like either a buff or a debuff on your coolness.
True.
It's either going to take you up a notch, it's going to make you worse. Don Draper with the SIG, big up, dude. But yeah, you think of Don Draper, who's like I said, the SIG and the drink has this kind of calm, insanely confident personality. His uncoolness, of course, comes from sometimes being a major dickhead and sleeping with every woman that he lays eyes on. not so cool. To some people that would be cool, but I don't know him. It's part of the character. It's not like it makes me dislike. I don't know. Some people are like, oh, that character did something I don't like. I don't like this show. It's like, no, that's good.
No, I know what you mean, Dust, because the average observer in the world of that show would just think he's the coolest motherfucker ever, just from afar.
Yeah.
Right? Like he's just the coolest. It's a mic drop answer. I love it.
Yeah. So as far as like people like acting cool, it's definitely, like you guys were saying, like the cool, not someone who doesn't freak out or like overreacts to things, stuff like that. But I think it really does come down to like a level of confidence, the right kind of confidence.
Yeah.
Like, someone who is confident in the wrong ways and kind of tries to, like, if you're at a party, take over the room, needs to be the center of attention. That's not cool. But someone who is not trying to be the coolest guy in the room, if that makes sense, like someone who is effortlessly funny, someone that when you talk to, like Brad was saying this, but like a content listener. It's like one of those, there's that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, which I fucking hate that title because it makes you sound like an egomaniac if you read it. It's a great book though. It's like,
I never read that. It's good. Yeah.
It is really good. Yeah. It's like this idea that everyone, including yourself, is the most self-obsessed person. And the number one thing you can do is listen to people. And that's like one of the big key factors is just being genuinely interested in people. So yeah, I guess someone who takes genuine interest in other people, cool and collected, the right level of confidence, and that's like a hard line to walk where, I think about us doing the show. It's like, I'm confident that we're able to put on a good show and make something entertaining. But at the same time, you don't always want to be like, oh, we're the best. You do jokingly. It's different. I don't know. There's that fine line of like, you want to be the best. There's some element where you should try to think you're the best, but not too much. The fine line. So there was another person I want to talk about, but I can't remember. So here's another aspect of this. How cool do you feel? This is something I've thought about. I mentioned before that 2 of our live shows, I wore this black jean jacket I have. And I told people like I wore that because when I wear that black jean jacket and there's certain articles of clothing, I'm like, this makes me feel cool. Does it make me cool? That's going to be up to you. It's in the eye of the beholder.
If you
either
feel
the jean
cool,
jacket or my floral JoJo jacket. Some people see that, think like I look like a fucking idiot. That's fine. But sometimes what I say is like, I got to sometimes do things that make me feel cool because I often feel like the most uncool person ever. So it's like doing some things will like help get me to baseline confidence level in myself. So, but yeah, what do you feel about your own coolness?
That's very well said. Brad, what
do you care
think?
about being cool?
Yeah. What do you think, Brad, about that?
I guess like from a physical standpoint, it's like, yeah, I do care about like, I don't want to dress like a fucking 10-year-old or whatever, I want to wear nice clothes appropriate for my age and everything.
Someone's going to comment and be like, oh, coming from a guy in a Pokemon sweatshirt.
Yeah, well, this is not what I wear all the time.
We're in the same boat.
Yeah, this is not what I wear all the time.
Yeah.
But I can get dressed nicely if I want to. But
sure. Yeah.
I mean, I'm recording in like sweatpants right now. Like,
oh, me too.
I don't give a fuck.
100%.
But yeah, having some self-respect for yourself, your attire, taking care of yourself, I think is something really important and everyone should do. Your hygiene, especially. So get on that. Get some nice clothes that make you feel good. Dustin's right. Like wearing a nice pair of clothes can make all the difference for your mindset in a day. You'll feel way better.
They don't have to be expensive clothes either.
No, they don't either.
Dude, that's a huge thing for me is like expensive luxury designer shit.
Yeah. Does
nothing for me.
It
does. Like, I don't know. When I see stuff like that, I'm like, I don't care. I don't care if your shoes are $10 or $1,000. They look good. I mean, sure, certainly $1,000 shoes. There's going to be ones that look really great. But
right.
There's also really cheap shit that looks awesome to me.
Sure.
There's nothing about branding in clothing that I find cool at all.
Yeah. And it's weird because with clothing wise, I'm not like a person that like wants to stand out necessarily. I don't wear stuff to stand out really, but I got no problem with people doing that. It's just a total different personality thing for me.
Yeah, it's not for you.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
I don't know, it's just kind of like finding that out about yourself too.
Well, that's the thing I was going to say. I mean, it is funny what Dustin says about, wearing your favorite clothes are the things that make you feel really confident, because I do think it shines through in some way. You know what I mean? Like that confidence definitely shines through and translates to who you're around, which is kind of this weird phenomenon, but it is kind of neat. We all have those things. I mean, I remember being, you remember that junior high or maybe earlier age where you're still kind of feeling yourself and what works for you and what doesn't. And you're going through the awkwardness of trying different things or different genres and trying to fit in. But that's the thing about being old. Like you definitely learn like what works for you, what translates, what you feel good in, you know what I mean? And I still don't know though. It's a great question. Like how cool do I feel? I remember picking up a skateboard in 8th grade, and I could tell you from there on out, I felt very confident and sort of calibrated when I was on my skateboard, and felt like really out of place and awkward when I wasn't. You know what I mean? Like there was something about the skateboard that just really comforted me and just made me feel like myself, like, where has this thing been all my life? Like, not just the act of skateboarding, which is a big part of it, but, being with that group of people, dressing a particular way. Of course, that evolved over time, but as it evolved, and, being known as that thing just felt right. And it's still, I'm an old skateboarder, but I think you could tell. That's the funny thing. Like, you could tell somebody in their 50s that skated once actively, like there's something that carries over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there is definitely something in that, you know what I mean? Where I think now, probably sometime in my 40s, yourself, what to wear, you dial everything in, you know what I mean? You dial in everything, like the superficial things and the meaningful things. And you just you become you kind of embody your final form. You know what I mean? But it takes time,
Dig, how old were you when you started skating?
I was in 8th grade, so I was 13.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, my experience skateboarding when I was a teenager feels totally different in that I wanted to skate, but I lacked so much confidence. And I don't know if I was just around people that were way better than me or people that were judgmental or something, but I was like, I feel not confident when I have a skateboard. I want to do it, but I feel almost embarrassed because I'm not very good at it.
I could see that.
Wrong mindset, of course. But
what year was that though?
I probably started doing some skateboarding when I was in 5th grade, 4th grade, maybe.
Okay.
And I did some skateboarding all the way up until like 8th grade, maybe. Yeah, probably about 8th grade. And I was never very good at it.
Yeah, that era, skateboarding was already, I started skateboarding in 87. Like it was still relatively new on the East Coast. It was already established in Southern California, I guess to some degree, NorCal. But you know what I mean? Like it was relatively new in New York. So I feel like we kind of got in on the ground floor. And the thing, I just wasn't afraid of it, which is weird because I'm afraid of fucking everything. I wasn't afraid to fall. You know what I mean? I wasn't afraid to get hurt. I just felt like I have to be good. This is my time to be good at something. And I watched, like the other soccer players and lacrosse players and regular kids jumped into, and like everyone slowly over time fell away and just left the core people that were really going to run with it. And I think that gave me more confidence. You know what I mean? It was just like, I don't think I grew up with kids that were naturally talented at skateboarding. I don't think it was that. I was just ambitious. You know what I mean? I would spend every waking minute with it. If it was snowing, I'd be in the garage, or in the basement with the low ceilings, like just doing what I could. And, that was it was just like, I think skateboarding, you find something. It's just like, it's what I wish for with my kids. It's like, just find that thing that feels like it was meant for you. Like skateboarding found me, I felt like, you know.
I feel like one of the big difference thinking about it now in hindsight was when I was getting into skateboarding was the era of like Pac Sun,
Yes,
where skater culture became well beyond skating. It was the clothing, the shoes and stuff like that. And there was like a big fear of being a poser amongst real skateboarders. You know, you can't don't be walking around with the mall grip on the
the mall grab.
Don't because like that was something I learned where I was like, I'm not just holding this walking around, because there were dudes that did that they like embodied the skater persona.
Yeah,
they didn't actually really care about it. It's like one of those things. It's like if you're bad at it, that's fine. But some guys, it was like there was like this whole like fear of being a skating poser.
Oh yeah,
because of how mainstream it was to even just embody the look.
It was mainstream, and you grew up in a harsh era with people being judgmental. Like, Brad, do you know what the mall grab is?
Isn't that you just walk around the board or whatever?
You got it. It's holding the board by the front truck.
Oh,
like a handle.
That wasn't really like a big deal for where I was from. Some kids did that, but like, I mean, most of them did the side thing, you know.
Yeah, it was just known. It was unwritten. No one ever talked. I mean, we didn't call it a mall grab for 15 years. It was just, you just didn't. I never heard it talked about.
Yeah,
you know, it's
most
weird.
people
But that was
just the side.
Skateboarding is a weird cult like that.
Yeah,
you know, because it was a lot of creative misfit kids that I think felt a lot of like a lot of juice forming their own thing, and then what they were doing was they were taking we were taking the jock mentality and turning it around on skateboarding, just a different form of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it was like this harsh, judgmental, like, dude, I would walk into skate shops in towns, you know what I mean, where I, you know, didn't belong, and I would feel vibed. You know what I mean? I clearly was a skateboarder. I mean, you know, I walked in to like buy a deck or get a set of bearings or something. You know, that was a tough. Skateboarding was a tough. There were definitely many rites of passage. I think only now has it become much easier. But then now, because it's so easier, then, you know, PJ and I talk about this a lot. Like, is it time to usher in a little of the old gatekeeping? Like, is it you know what I mean? Like, it's like it kind of comes out of gatekeeping. Is there not enough gatekeep? You know, it's kind of a funny. Then you realize, like, you know, it's it was a little toxic.
Yeah. Oh, for sure it was.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I would walk into Supreme, for instance, in New York, like the flagship store, like the first store before it was like an international thing, and they would all but tell me to get out. I mean, I grew up skateboarding with these kids that work there. You know what I mean? I was just down at the Brooklyn Banks with these kids. They acted like, because I don't know, it was because we were from Long Island and we weren't from the boroughs or what, but it was just like, I couldn't have gotten much closer to that inner circle without being one of them. And they were still like, all but like, get the fuck out. You know what I mean? It was like that.
Damn.
It was tough. You know, and then when I worked
like that,
when I went to work at Sub-Zero, which was like Philadelphia's 90s Supreme, for lack of a better word, like that was the cool spot in Philly. And I managed that shop. I was really careful to be to kind of usher in a different dynamic, me and the other people there. Shout out to Rick and Shane. But, you know, like we would just, you know, not be so intimidating especially to the kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which you essentially you're shooting yourself in the foot. Like they're there to buy product. You don't want to scare people out of the store.
No.
You know,
Supreme will sell their shit to anyone.
Supreme, well, Supreme really became like, you know, like Dustin saying, like Pac Sun and Zoomies, like there's no Supremes in the malls, but there are mall stores that sell all Supreme gear, right? Yeah. Whether it's like secondhand or whatever it is. Yeah, but that's you guys gave me some very substantive answers with integrity. There were no shallow answers here. With the cool, I mean, Kendrick, but I kind of get it with Kendrick. Like, Dust, I wanted to check in with you on this. It's interesting that you bring it up because you and I touched base on Kendrick and Drake when we talked about the beef, but it was pre-Super Bowl performance. Yeah. How did you like the Super Bowl the whole thing, the whole show out for that.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. It didn't like blow my socks off or anything, but a lot of people didn't like the songs he chose to play. He played a lot of songs from his new album, which I think his new album is awesome. So it didn't bother me at all. It was interesting that in what he did for the halftime show, he basically telegraphed what the response was going to be, like perfectly, which was awesome. So I think it's great. And there was a big thing like, oh, why is he doing a song that he wrote about Drake when it's his time to shine? I'm like, dude, it's his biggest hit right now. Of course he's going to do Not Like Us. Of course. So I don't know. People are never happy. And I'm just like, if you like it, great. If you don't, that's fine too. But yeah, dude, he is on a roll right now.
He's on a tear.
Yeah. It's well deserved, in my opinion. He's the best rapper alive right now, in my opinion. He might, and I'm not, to be fair, I'm not some like scholar of rap history, and I'm not even a huge rap fan in general, I would say, but to me, I should say he is the best.
Yeah, I was wondering how fans dealt with, accepted that performance. I know everybody was talking about his pants. Pants were a big thing.
The flares, dude. That's the thing, is that's not cool, in my opinion. Like, a dude wearing flares, not cool. When he's up there, it's bias. I understand it's 100% bias, but I'm like, he pulls it off. It looks cool.
I mean, they were kind of mom jeans, right? And he was still rocking.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean,
yeah. It was cool. He's cool. He's the epitome of cool.
He is cool.
I could see that as being like definitely a modern, acceptable answer for. Yeah, he seems to like. It's one of those dudes who just kind of like seems to get it. He doesn't have a proper rival though. I know I'm not really tuned in to the Kendrick Drake thing, but it just seems like those two are on two separate of levels. I think Kendrick needs a proper rival.
Yeah. It was hilarious to me that people thought that Drake was gonna win at any point. As someone who's listened and likes both of them, or at least I like Drake's earlier stuff, that it's like, you think that he's gonna be able to win against Kendrick in a battle of rap, of writing? It's just not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen.
Yeah, it seems a little uneven. It seems maybe we'll get something. Maybe we'll get a new enemy for Kendrick in there.
Ooh,
right? I don't know. Could be interesting.
Arguably, the person that people thinks on the same level of like writing quality would have been J. Cole, and J. Cole bowed out in the beef.
I keep hearing about this guy. I don't know him.
Yeah, I mean, I've listened to some of his stuff, but yeah, he made a song, like a diss track, and then he deleted it and was like,
"Oh, that's so interesting."
He was like, I wasn't saying anything from, like, I didn't believe it. He just had, people were putting the expectations, like, oh, dude, you got to respond. He's like, right. It's not like Drake, who had malice in his heart about it.
Evil in his heart.
I'll give you guys, this is a weird one for me to describe. When I brought the topic, is one of the first things I thought of, and it's definitely a more shallow, materialistic answer. And I don't know if I'm going to have trouble articulating this or not, but I like cars a lot. I'm a big car guy now. I don't have the means to be a big car guy in material form, but I really like cars. If I had money, I would definitely have some cars, right? Really appreciate cars. Really like modern German cars. I'm a big Audi, BMW, Porsche guy. I love them. I think they're beautiful. Mercedes, all that kind of stuff. And there's something about having the means to have nice things without being flashy about it. I guess it's having nice things in an elegant way that comes down to this one product that I've always admired. Now, you could get a BMW M3, which is a high performance BMW. It's an expensive car, It's a beautiful car, like one of the most beautiful looking machines. If you look up BMW M3, you could see it spanning the last 30-ish years, and the model years and the styling evolves and stuff, but they're just beautiful cars. Somewhat limited production runs, very sought after. It's a real enthusiast car. It's not a mom car. Sorry, moms.
Right.
Now, you could buy a BMW M3. They're very expensive. Okay. You're going to spend, I don't even know what a modern one goes for. Fully loaded, let's say you're going to spend 150 on this car, right? Then you could take it. This is a German car. You could take it to an American sort of performance shop called Dagan. I don't even know where Dagan Motorsports is located, but they'll take your brand new BMW M3. I'm not sure if it voids the warranty, the factory warranty or not. They'll take your car and they'll modify it, do all these crazy modifications under the hood. Maybe it includes like some visual components and aesthetics, like a little bit of like a little incremental, like 1/4 of an inch drop and coilover springs and all these under the hood modifications to the tune of like, it used to be $50,000-$60,000. Probably it's now probably $100,000 on top of what you just spent for this brand new car, right? And all they do is they put, all you would know, somebody in the know would know that this was done to your M3, already a beautiful car, is they'll put a little Dagan badge on the back where it says M3. So it's this little down low, sort of hot low, we used to call it, thing where only people that know would even know what that was. There's just something so cool about that to me, right? Never just having it done, never talking about it, never showing off. It's only there for the few people that are going to see that are going to appreciate it. There's just something so neat about that to me. Like, I guess really, maybe it's that old like snobby skater mentality of like, only if you know, you know, but there's just something so irresistibly cool about that for me, where it's like the average person is going to think Dagan is like the dealership where you bought it from. But that means you knew enough to have this M3 and even have the performance ported out and amplified. And it's not that you spent the money. It's not even a money thing. It's more that you knew, you know what I mean? And you got on the wait list and you got your car in there and they did it for you and you waited patiently. And it's, you know what I mean? It's just kind of like that sort of thing always spoke to me. You know what I mean? And again, it wasn't about the money. It's just about being in that club of knowing. It's really more knowing.
Yeah.
Which
everyone wants to have like that secret thing that they know that others don't.
I love that kind of shit. Now, I don't know if that's a Gen Xer thing, or what, but like that sort of like, being in that club, that club mentality, or, again, like, maybe this is what I like. Maybe that's why it was cool to be a skateboarder, because there were less skateboarders than soccer players. It was a more specialized thing. And you had to work a little harder. There were less skate shops than Dick's Sporting Goods. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. There's just something, again, it's hard to articulate, but I just want to show my appreciation for that type of thing.
Yeah.
I
got to be honest, Dig, since you mentioned cars. I saw for the first time here in Butler, right outside of Sam's Club, Cybertruck.
Oh,
you saw your first one? Holy shit.
You know what?
What?
Tell me. You like them?
Gotta look kind of cool. Gotta look kind of cool. Now, as far as the lifestyle, I would never want to own one. I think outside, like, it's one of those cars that I feel like it's better as like a concept car. You see it and you're like, oh, that's cool looking car. Is it practical? No. Is it practical for anybody? I don't know. But I saw it and visually I'm like, that was kind of cool. People hate it. Of course, Elon, big controversies around him.
Sure.
Nothing about that. Just saw the Cybertruck and thought, pretty cool.
Plus,
I saw it and it was turning and it had like the cool light on the front.
Oh, they do have cool. Yeah, their front grille is really cool.
It's like, that was pretty neat.
Assembly is cool. They're depreciating, I understand.
The silver
pretty
one?
quickly.
Yeah. It was like a standard stock.
Okay.
Cybertruck.
I think I saw a gold one. Finally.
Yeah, we have so many Teslas by me. I've seen that thing in so many colors now.
Really?
Yeah, I'm like, I didn't even know it came in that color. What the hell?
I don't think it does. It's probably
it
modded.
must be. I mean, it must be custom, but yeah, I've seen
Custom,
like
yeah.
all black ones and stuff. Some colored ones.
Yeah, they're yeah, I thought they were pretty rare at first. I see a lot between here and the beach, but I think who was I listening to? I was listening to Doug DeMuro or somebody, one of the car podcasts. They were saying how they're depreciating quicker than they thought they would be, so they're becoming affordable, more affordable
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of people. You could get a gently used one for like, still a lot of money, $60,000 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, shout out to the Cybertruck. I just like it's not for everybody, but it's the boldness.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a
You
bold
know what
car.
I mean?
For
It's
sure.
just that, it's the fact that it's bold.
Yeah.
All right. And now do you guys there's another car, American electric car company called Rivian.
Yeah, I've
makes
seen
a
that.
really
Yeah.
nice looking SUV.
Like SUVs, yeah.
The RS1 or the R1S, I'm not sure. And then they have the pickup version of it too, but I like the SUV a lot. Super
Mhm.
fast. All those electric cars are like mind-numbingly quick,
Yeah.
including the Cybertruck.
Mhm.
I think it goes to 0 to 60 in like 3 seconds. Like
Wow.
nothing that heavy should go that quick. That's insane.
Yeah.
But they are
Oh,
they are neat.
they're
I
an
mean,
American
I like a
company?
world where we could have a Cybertruck,
Sure.
right? Give me the
Yeah.
I know Elon's a divisive dude right now, but
Yeah.
that being said.
Well, I don't know. Is it worth even talking about Elon right now? It's so like he's like a lightning rod.
Yeah.
He really is.
Yeah.
It kind of happened overnight too, right? Like it switched,
Right.
right? I don't
Yeah.
pay that much attention.
I have muted him so he doesn't show up on my Twitter anymore because I feel like he's become the most annoying person ever. Regardless of all the political stuff, like anyone acting like that, I'm like, just shut up.
Yeah,
Bro.
it's getting to be
Just
a
like-
lot. It's a lot. You know what's interesting about it though? If you kind of like, I kind of like the big podcasting sewing circles, and it's getting weird because where there used to be like mutual friends, like I'm a big Bill Burr fan, and he's talking a lot of shit on Elon, and then Joe Rogan is sort of in the middle of that.
Mhm.
If you look at like not just the like stand-up comedy, because obviously Elon's outside of that, but like if you look at the big podcasting circles, now it's getting a little divisive. Like people are taking up sides and stuff. So it's actually really interesting in a melodrama reality show type of a sense. You know what I mean? It's kind of neat.
The melodrama for middle-aged white men.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Don't worry. There was like a YouTube channel I found that was dedicated to that. And I found myself watching it. I'm like, what am I doing? What am I
would
doing?
totally watch that.
I think it's let me see if I can find the channel. I remember it's called Too Lazy to Try. Too Lazy to Try. This is
I
like
definitely know this one.
soap opera drama podcaster space.
He's the one that has the very monotone delivery,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
He's-
I know exactly what you're talking about. I definitely listen to that dude.
His most recent video, Lex Friedman won't stop humiliating himself. I actually believe that. Which I like Lex, but
I do too.
that's the thing about a lot of these people is that they're just people. You're going to like some things they do. You're going to not like others. Some of them are going to change to the point
It's
where you
true.
don't like them at all anymore. So
I
it
know.
happens.
You know what's interesting about the whole thing when you really think back? Our boy, the guy who owns this whole thing, has been on Rogan twice. He's
Yeah.
kind of part of that, like a satellite part, but in a way, he's associated.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
It is. It'd be interesting. I feel like I've listened to a lot less Rogan recently.
Yeah,
He's become, again,
me too.
people, it is political inherently, but it's like he kind of just goes on the same rant like with
No,
all
I
the
get
same
it.
people. I'm like, though I was watching, he had Bill Murray on. What's Bill Murray promoting? I saw he was on Hot Ones also.
He's got
I
a
don't
new
know.
movie.
New movie.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Dude, that episode where he's on Joe Rogan, he's like, I don't really know who you are. I've never seen this show before.
That was amazing.
I was like, oh, all right.
That's funny.
Yeah, but he's kind of like I saw him on Hot Ones too. He came out of his shell, but it can't be just to promote the movie. Like it seems like he's got a whole change of attitude. It's very interesting with Bill Murray, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He did the two biggest podcasts. What would be the third? I can't even think of what would be the third. But maybe this one. Bill could come on this one.
Yeah.
Right?
Bill Murray. I don't know. I don't think he would deal with our shit. He'd be like, you guys are dumb.
Yeah, he definitely wouldn't have the patience for this. He was what was he doing on Rogan? Towards the end, he was pimping his golf gear, like golf clothing, like a clothing line that he's associated with. I thought it was really interesting. Does even the Bill Murrays of the world, do they run out of money? I don't know.
He's thinking about the future, I guess.
Yeah.
The next generation of his family, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know.
It's like who's what's his name from Die Hard?
Oh, Bruce
Willis.
Bruce Willis, yeah.
Bruce Willis. He did like 1 million movies right before they announced about his trying to remember what his condition is, but he basically was just like trying to make as much money as possible before he wasn't able to,
or something.
Yeah. Some sort of dementia, yeah.
Some kind of dementia. So he was just like making all these movies, anyone that would pay him, just like trying to set up his family for life, which I mean, respect.
Yeah.
But a little bit of
incredible
tarnish.
Yeah, that's incredible. Like, you know what it was? You know what turned me on to that? Whenever it was the Red Letter Media guys, because they were starting to like, why is this guy making so many B-grade direct-to-video movies? And it turns out that's why.
Yep.
He was just socking money away, like while he had his druthers, because he was quickly losing his faculties, which is so sad. And then I think, who is he married to? He's married to, I don't know, who he was married to Demi Moore, right? But not anymore.
Yeah.
Right. But his family, I don't know if it was Demi, his ex-wife, or it was his new wife, but this was a few months ago, I want to say. They had they were singing happy birthday to him, and you could see he's already gone, which is so sad. He's he's sad. Not that old. He's not old, Yeah, that was a weird internet revisionist thing where people had to turn around and be like, oh, we were criticizing this guy and this was the whole reason.
Yeah.
The poor guy was just trying to, stock away some money, save up some money for his family while he could still do the thing he was good at. Man.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
Oof. That's deep. All right, my friends, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm satisfied.
Yeah.
I think that topic the way you guys handled that topic was cool.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Oh,
It was a cool topic.
Make me look like the shallow one. I like it.
Brad, I think we can confidently say, Dagan, that Brad is probably the coolest member of LSM.
Oh,
I
agree.
say that. Don't
I
say that.
Coolest
100%
member.
agree.
Don't say that.
You got the cool vibe.
No.
Why can't I'll say what I want.
Okay.
I'm declaring it.
I won't. Okay.
I'm going to go with Brad and Cog as the two coolest. 100%. Like buttery, smooth, cool.
Buttery smooth, cool.
Buttery smooth, the butters. Cool, super cool. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, man. Like we grew growing up in New York, we always thought of it as like a Southern California vibe, but Brad has all that, all the good of that, but without the surfer stereotypes. Like every other word being dude and
the
Spicoli burnout.
I do say dude a lot.
Dude, that's what
everybody does.
We got hit with that. The first time Brad was on Last Stand, we talked about Kingdom Hearts. A lot of comments like, "Oh, between these two, the dudes are too high." I'm like,
it depends who I talk to, Dagan. It can slip out much more.
That's interesting. But what are you going to do? That's like native to where you're from.
Yeah, it's fine. It's just what it is.
It's
who I am. That's how everyone around me talked growing up.
Yeah, I mean, that's just what it is. Did you ever hear, like, I've been living outside of Long Island for a long time, but my Long Island accent was ridiculous. Like people send me that. Have you guys seen that public service announcement where the kids are talking about like shutting off the water? Like, you got to shut off the water. Like it's a Long Island. And like people send it to me all the time, like forward it to me all the time. Like I sounded like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like, what are you going to do? You're a product of your environment.
Yeah. Some things just never go away. Try to tone it down, but they always slip out every now and then.
But leave it to people to roast you for it.
Yeah, and like if that's what you're roasting me for, it could be way worse. So
Could be
I'm all right with that.
way
Yep.
worse.
I'm all right with that.
Absolutely, my friend. Well, listen, I'm going to say goodbye to you first. Brad, thank you for being on the show. I always love having you. Love
Hey.
the chill vibes. You're sending me into the weekend with some much needed SoCal energy.
Good. I'm glad I could help. Thanks for having me on. Always lovely talking with you, Dagan, and of course Dustin. Thank you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Dust. It was always great seeing you as well, my friend. I miss you. I miss seeing you in person. I guess we'll have an opportunity if you come out in June for Too Many Games.
Yeah. I'm trying to get Brad to go too.
Well,
that would be so
I'm trying
sick.
to get you to go to the SoCal Retro Gaming Expo.
Dude, the problem is they're very close together.
I know. Well, mine's gonna have the Happy Console Gamer there.
Oh,
Yeah.
dude.
That's
Loved
true.
seeing
That's
him
true.
on
And
Summit
we've
Sign.
been on the show with him.
Speaking of cool dudes,
Yeah,
he's
he's
a
a cool
console
dude.
gamer. Cool dude.
Oh, it was you two and
Yeah, it
Johnny,
was me
right?
too.
Yep.
Yeah, it was us two.
Oh, I'm a huge fan.
yeah,
me
he's
too.
awesome.
So let's
Great
see.
guy.
Today, I have Split Fiction to play with Holly.
Nice.
Played some of that last night. Pretty good.
Yep.
Might play some Squeak It In 1 and 2. I think my friend Brandon called it Squeak It In once. And so, you want to play some Squeak It In?
Yeah, that's
Um,
awesome.
I might start that. And Brad, are we hunting tonight?
Yeah, I can hunt.
We got to hunt. Now that
Yeah,
we're both
I can-
done with the main part of the game,
Yeah, I can hunt with you. Sure.
the boys must hunt.
The
in
boys
Monster
must
Hunter.
hunt. Yes.
I got FOMO. That game looks so good to me.
It's really good. Though, I'll save it. I
we'll
want
save
to talk
Mm.
to you, Brad. We'll get on Summit Sign at some point for
Yeah, we'll talk
in-depth
about it. Yeah.
deep dive for Monster Hunter. But maybe we should just do a spoiler cast for Sacred Symbols Plus.
If we can, yeah.
Why not? We don't have to talk. We can just talk about Monster Hunter in depth for an hour.
Okay, yeah. I was like story stuff. I
Yeah.
was
Fuck
starting
that.
to skip it.
Yeah.
'Cause I
No,
was
we're not
like,
talking
this
about the
is
story.
boring.
We'll do it. We should do a Sacred Symbols Plus. We can do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
you guys
Colin-
didn't do a Monster Hunter specific show for LSM yet?
You talked
did
about it
we?
on Summon Sign, but
Okay.
it's still pretty fresh
Yeah.
right now, the new game. So maybe in a week or two, we can do Sacred Symbols Plus in depth talking about it. That'd be fun. Colin will never say no to a Sacred Symbols Plus episode of suggestion that he doesn't have to be on.
You're right.
So, I don't blame him. Blame him.
Yeah. It's content that he could just put out there without having to do anything.
We
Yeah.
can make him just
100%.
sit there and not have
Sit
to
and listen.
He doesn't know what to say. That'd
that's
be good.
That's good.
Like he does on Constellation.
Yeah.
Just kidding, Kyle. We know you miss him. Yeah, weekend plans. I don't know what I have going on. You know what I'm addicted to? I don't know if you guys have gone down this rabbit hole yet. If you've been to Top Golf,
No.
Oh, I want to. I haven't been
Dude.
though.
First of all, it's addictive. It's a problem. It's becoming. I took my son. We needed something to do. Helene's like, you got to take Raiden out. Like, just go do something with him today. He's been talking about Top Golf. I said, let's go. It's in the outskirts of Philly, so it's not super close. And I hate driving over there because it's crazy. But I was like, let's go. Let's just do it. Started to flurry a little bit. I was like, you know what? It'll be quiet. Dude, that place is so fucking fun. I don't know for you top golfers out there, but it's super expensive. And now I'm like, I think I want to do it every weekend. But here's the thing. I just want to drive golf balls. Helene's like, just go to the driving range.
Yeah, driving range.
Oh, is that what
I've
it
done
is?
that.
A driving
It's
range?
a target. It's a glorified multi-floored driving range, but you play target games. There's giant targets out there. And you could play the regular run-of-the-mill games or the Captain America game. There's an Angry Birds game. And you keep score, but you're supposed to aim for the target. So I just want to drive it as far as humanly possible. That's all I want to do. You know, the kids get mad at me. They're like, Dad, you're not even playing. I'm like, well, just pretend I'm playing. I just want to see how far I could smack this thing. You know, that's the fun. And Helene's like, we could have saved like $150 if you just went to the driving range. So I might have to go to the driving range. But Top Golf, amazing. Even the food's not bad. You know, you get a beer, you can get a cocktail, get a little soft drink for the kids, right? Have a little family time. Nice. It's cold up here in Philly right now. Heated, sort of, you get a little bit of, they give you a nook. They give you like a little area with heated seats,
Well,
space heaters in the ceiling. So it's very comfortable. Waiter comes to the table. brings you your drinks and your food, checks on you. It's very nice, but of course, a little pricey. But yeah, so I want to take the kids on Sunday.
Nice.
But Helene hasn't been with us yet, and she's very competitive, my wife, about everything.
Uh-oh.
So I think what's going to end up happening is I already know how to golf a little bit. So I know how to draw a golf ball, but I don't think she does. She knows how. So I think it's going to lead to a little bit of, I think she's going to have a problem with not being as good as me, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, dude. Let her know, man.
I try to warn her.
Establish dominance.
This is Phil Mickelson over here. I don't want to say Tiger Woods. He's too problematic. So that's no video games that I know of, but that'll be my video game. Just driving that golf ball.
Nice.
Yep.
Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's it that's it, my friends. Just a little teensy bit of housekeeping. Patreon.com/laststandmedia for early ad-free access. As always, I have to go on there and see what the tiers are. I don't know what the tiers are for certain benefits. I need to refresh my memory on that. But just pay the highest one.
It's like the best one, right? Usually the most value.
Yeah. Best tier is $5. That's where you get early access to this show.
Dude, that's a steal. $5?
$5.
We need to raise that up. Inflation.
Yeah.
Right? We could cite inflation all day. We'll take advantage of it before we raise it up. It's $5 right now. Perfect value. And thank you for doing that. And laststandmedia.store has the merch. Get yourself some gear. Spring's coming. Need some t-shirts. We got 2 more weeks of cold weather, depending on where you live. Get a hoodie. I don't know. That's Micah's thing. That's another thing. Micah hasn't been on the show in quite some time. I usually check in with her on current merch status. Of course, I could text her or call her, but it's nice to have her on the show and weigh in on that. But if you want to inquire about merch, DM us. DM me or Micah. I'll let you guys know. And that's about it. Going out for Bradley, if you're nasty, Ellis, and Dustin Furman. I'm Dagster Moriarty saying thank you out there for joining us today. You're appreciated. We love you. We'll see you next week. The weeks are going fast. I mark my weeks by doing Constellation, and it feels like I did it yesterday. I don't know if that's a good sign or a bad sign. Now, go listen to your second favorite podcast and get out. Peace.
Constellation is a product of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show was conceived by and is directed and hosted by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is my brother, Dagan Moriarty. The show is produced by Last Stand's executive producer, Dustin Furman. All Last Stand theme music is by Ramon Narvaez, and all of our graphics and logos are by Dagan Moriarty. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's podcasts, including Constellation, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest support tier, and we're infinitely grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor.